Once mocked as a weakling, he now bore the fearsome label of monster. Perhaps in this cursed world, where weakness spelled certain death and strength became the only truth, it was the monsters who truly deserved to endure. He glanced down at the fallen enemy, cold resolve in his eyes, and declared without mercy that he was the very outcast everyone once despised. Yet even those at the bottom could rise to defy the world's unyielding laws. The gift-giving ceremony unfolded within the village temple. Kai Heinemann and Reino Graf lingered at the entrance, anticipation fluttering in their hearts as they awaited their turn. Expectation and quiet hope shone in their eyes alight with excitement. Reno revealed that she had dreamed the very same dream. The two youths launched into an animated discussion, passionately speculating about the kinds of gifts that might forever alter the course of their futures. Joy pounded in the protagonist's chest as the long-awaited day arrived. At last, the moment had come for him to receive his gift as a divine blue. Excitement and hope surged through his soul, filling him completely. A gift is a special talent bestowed upon every child at the age of 13, regarded as a blessing from the gods. This moment marks the true beginning of their journey into adulthood. Many gifts take countless forms. Some grant mastery over sword or spear, others awaken the art of magic, and a rare few allow turning ordinary objects into treasures. Yet above all, a gift shapes one's destiny and forges the path ahead. In truth, the hero lied about dreaming of a sword-related gift. Within his dreams, he pretended to desire what everyone else did, yet deep in his heart, he longed for something entirely different. The thought of receiving a sword stirred no excitement within him. This was the dream of his grandfather, the sage of the sword, who yearned to pass down the legacy of the Heinemann art to his grandson. Yet, that longing belonged to someone else, not to him. In truth, his true desire centered on a different dream, a gift that would transform him into the perfect hunter, just like his mother. That calling alone sparked a fire deep within his heart. Adventurers roam enchanted lands, delve into ancient ruins, and battle formidable monsters. This was the kind of life the hero longed to pursue. A yearning for freedom and a heart hungry for adventure guided each of his dreams. Even if the sword were to fall into his hands, talent would still elude him. Deep down, he understood his own limits. Mastering this path lay forever out of reach. Instead of power, the sword would become nothing more than a burden he was never meant to bear. His memory was unremarkable, and among his peers, he was not considered particularly strong. Suddenly, a friend's playful remark snapped him out of his thoughts. She joked that perhaps her gift would be the ability to transform into a cat. Suddenly, a commotion broke out near the altar. An unexpected disturbance unfolded, drawing the attention of everyone in the temple, as all eyes swiftly turned toward the source of the commotion. Layla Helena came sprinting toward them, calling out with excitement. The hero noticed she had finished ahead of schedule, while Reno inquired about the reason behind her happiness. With pride shining in her eyes, Layla revealed that she had received the gift of a top-ranked swordsman. No one found this surprising. As the only girl in town whose sword skills rivaled those of the Heinemann family, she stood out. On top of that, she was betrothed to the protagonist. The revelation left everyone stunned. Stepping toward Layla, the hero prepared to share his news, only for her to interrupt him. She already knew everything, having witnessed it all unfold firsthand. Drawing nearer, he confirmed it was truly her, then introduced himself as a sacred knight of magic. Explaining that he wished to discuss her gift, he politely inquired if she had a few moments to spare. A wave of unease swept over Layla. Her gift never seemed as rare or remarkable as Roman's. Yet the knight explained that her abilities stemmed from being the heir of the Helena family. Greatness, he said, could not be attained overnight. Her gift was the outcome of relentless daily practice, never forced upon her but shaped by her own will. The hero found himself deeply moved by the knight's words. Luck truly seemed to favor his bride. With a quiet gesture, Roman beckoned her to follow, and though uncertainty flickered in her eyes, she stepped forward at his side. Kiach approached the protagonist and apologized for his cousin's behavior, explaining that embarrassment had gotten the better of him. His words carried genuine remorse, yet the lingering tension from earlier still hovered in the air. With a quiet wave of his hand, the protagonist signaled that everything was fine. Understanding washed over him, and not a trace of resentment lingered. His voice carried only calm assurance and a sense of inner acceptance. He even suggested keeping up with them and pressing onward. At that moment, Kai broke the brief silence that had settled between them by calling out to Reno. The girl who received the gift of the sacred sword struggled to speak at first. Awestruck by the sudden surge of power bestowed upon her, she faltered, unable to find her voice. Whispers traveled among the knights as they stood close to her. One quietly listed the blessings with astonishment. Lord of the Spear, Master of Magic, and now the sacred sword. Another knight nodded in agreement, remarking that this year felt like madness. Such an abundance of great gifts could only mean that the demonic threat was growing stronger. Meanwhile, the hero watched everyone in silence, his thoughts laced with bitter irony. His gift was the weakest in this entire world, a fact that no longer seemed to surprise anyone. Before the eyes of the crowd, a confrontation erupted between Roman and the hero. Roman hurled sharp words at him, demanding to know what was wrong with him, accusing him of weakness and uselessness. The hero, however, remained silent. Suddenly, a voice rang out from the crowd, claiming that he was no weakling anywhere, except in this. Amusement flickered over the cousin's face as he boldly challenged Kai to a duel. The tension soared, thickening the air between them. Carol approached the hero and offered a steady hand to help him up. Her voice carried a note of empathy, acknowledging how the blow had landed squarely on his forehead and must have hurt. Yet, she remained at his side. Over the years, pain had woven itself into the fabric of his existence. Blows landed so often that their sting faded into the background, barely noticeable anymore. Power slipped away from him like sand sifting through open fingers, leaving nothing behind but weakness. Despite countless hours spent in training, his muscles grew feebler with each passing day. Even young children and girls surpassed him in strength. Friends turned their backs on him, and soon, bruises, blood, and broken bones became familiar companions. A day with only a few bruises was considered a stroke of good fortune. Laughter rippled among strangers as they pointed fingers in his direction. In the city of Ramor, only a handful still treated him with decency, his fiancée among the few. Alongside his lost strength, the title of Heinemann heir had also slipped away. That day, his engagement to Layla came to an end. No longer the heir to the sword arts, no longer a fiancé, he slipped into obscurity. Now, only an ordinary boy remained, burdened with a gift that stripped him of everything. Although worry lingered in the girl's eyes, his assurances came gently. He was all right, and there was no need for concern. Calm radiated from his gaze, yet deep within, a quiet loneliness flickered. With a firm nod, he gave his assent, though the effort weighed heavily on him. Despite the ache in his chest, composure remained his armor as he strove to stand tall with quiet dignity. Lila made up her mind to encourage her friend, convinced he would soon land a job. Yet the protagonist confessed that despite his mother's advice to find work, he had entirely different ambitions in mind. In the capital stands the Wobble Magical Academy, a place where even those without a gift can learn. There, others grapple with the same struggles and misfortunes he knows so well. Within those halls, a chance for a fresh start might just wait for him. The girl felt a quiet sorrow at the thought of their parting. Yet she promised to write letters, hoping that even a small gesture might bring him comfort. Her wish was to ease his loneliness. Gratitude filled him for her kindness, her support gently warming his spirit. Yet the moment to part arrived. She gathered her belongings, bidding a warm farewell and leaving behind a comforting memory. The protagonist prepared to visit his grandfather, but Roman's voice halted him mid-step. Roman stated plainly, "You're out." Within those words lingered a weight that went far beyond a simple judgment. In truth, it was Roman who inherited the gift of the Spear King, and any memory of his engagement to Layla had long since faded away. Whatever once connected them now belonged to the past, scattered like dust in the wind. The reasoning proved sound. Roman belonged to the Heinemann family as well, and unlike the protagonist, he came from the main branch. This connection granted him every right to be by her side. Everyone around them saw it as the natural course of events. Takai calmly objected, explaining that his feelings for Layla were nothing like his cousin's. This was never a competition for a girl. What he felt ran much deeper, woven from memories, trust, and the unbreakable bond of family. In his mind, Roman's worries were unfounded. Yet before Roman could protest any further, their mentor's voice cut through the tension, calling them back to their duties. The cousin snarled, questioning why anyone would waste time on a slacker. As he strode away, he shouted a warning not to go near Layla again, threatening consequences. The protagonist simply sighed inwardly. After all, his feelings for her had never been romantic. She had always been like a sister to him. The old man studied his grandson with weary eyes and sighed, noting the bruises modeling the boy's face. His apology came out in a low, genuine murmur, carrying a weight that seemed to press down on him from within. Surprise flickered across Kai's face as his eyebrows lifted. Apologies made no sense to him. The stern old man he had known his entire life never acted this way. At last, the grandfather declared the engagement with Layla cancelled, and with heavy heart, announced his grandson's banishment from the family home. Though his words struck like a blade, they carried no trace of hatred. The hero simply shrugged, indifferent to it all. Acceptance had settled in long ago, leaving such things without any hold over him. From the outset, he made it clear that his bond with Layla was nothing more than camaraderie. Dreams of family life or inheriting the sword had never appealed to him. His true aspirations lay along the road to the capital or perhaps toward Wobble. No trace of disappointment clouded his expression. With gentle sadness in his eyes, the grandfather looked at his grandson and admitted that he was probably just getting old. His voice carried the weight of fatigue, though it held no trace of disappointment. At times, he confessed, a certain mystery seemed to linger in Kai's eyes. Still, nothing could dim their extraordinary clarity, untouched by malice or anger. With eyes like those, the old man added, there was no cause for worry. Let him go to the capital, and do as he sees fit. Although Kai was taken aback by the old man's easy approval, gratitude welled up in him as he offered his heartfelt thanks. A sudden realization washed over him. The true dream was not about wielding the sword, but about venturing into Wobble. His grandfather, it seemed, had recognized this truth long before he did. The old man spoke with quiet conviction, explaining that the nature of one's gift holds no true importance. Such things do not define a person. What truly matters is the bond of family, and that connection endures no matter what. He added that the doors of this house would remain forever open. Though not the heir, he belonged to the family, and this place would always be his home. A protest rose within, eager to declare that his ties to this place had long since faded and belonged to the past. Yet something held him back. The old man raised his voice. A return is inevitable, even if it takes years. This land shaped his childhood, his roots run deep here, and neither fortune nor defeat can alter that. Though the grandson appeared inattentive, he suddenly spoke up, assuring his grandfather that he understood everything and would follow his advice. Brief but sincere, his words carried true meaning. Grandfather offered a silent nod, signaling the close of their conversation. His words, "Take care of yourself," carried a gentle warmth, a tenderness born from genuine concern rather than the finality of a farewell. At last, a faint light glimmers on the horizon, marking the arrival of his moment. The journey now leads him to Wobble, the legendary capital of hunters. Ahead stretches the promise of destiny, carrying the hope that he will finally become the true hunter he has always yearned to be. Fueled by his dream, he issued a silent command to himself. No more hesitation from this moment on. Determined to become the person he aspired to be, he had chosen his own path, and would no longer let anyone else decide his fate. Upon arriving in the capital, his first task was to seek out the carriage stands. As he scanned the bustling streets, the city revealed itself in grand detail, each corner alive with an air of ambition and scale. At that very moment, a magnificent carriage rolled to a halt before him. The boy froze in astonishment, his wide eyes fixed on the opulent vehicle. Such treasures were meant for someone far removed from ordinary folk. Astonishment seized the hero. The girl from the crew shared the very name of the revered Saint Amelia of the kingdom. The resemblance between them was nothing short of extraordinary. Before he could gather his thoughts, she stepped forward, hissing coldly in his face, demanding how someone so weak could dare to show disrespect. At her side stood a fantastic creature, a lion adorned with wings and spectacles, which declared with grave certainty that they had discovered the gateway for the army. Rose interrupted her, addressing her as Anna. Calmly, she pointed out that Anna had chosen to accompany the protagonist of her own free will, yet by doing so, she was bringing shame both upon herself and her grandfather, the revered swordmaster. Another maid attempted to explain that Anna's only intention had been to protect her. Nevertheless, Rose's fury ignited so intensely that even the protagonist felt a chill. Her anger was raw and unmistakable. The crew was already waiting for him when he arrived. Uncertainty flickered through Kai's thoughts as he wondered if all aristocrats were truly like this. Mixed emotions swirled within him, anticipation tangled with confusion, and the path ahead remained uncertain. A tray holding a meager portion of food was placed before him, accompanied by the message that these rations came at the Lord's command. The name Frenton surfaced, catching Kai off guard. Memories stirred as he recalled his grandfather mentioning that name long ago, though the exact connection remained just out of reach. Indignation welled up inside, but a sharp rebuke from one of the attendants cut him off, calling him a weakling for pushing his way through. Intent on responding, he opened his mouth. Yet once again, derision filled the air before he could speak. Once again, the man shoved him and sneered, calling him a weakling. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Someone muttered that this was happening all over again. Another person grumbled that it was best to just ignore it. Meanwhile, a bitter thought crossed the hero's mind. What if he had actually been injured? Would they still have laughed at him in that case? When asked why she stood up for the weak, the girl replied calmly that she was not protecting anyone. Lady Rose had simply instructed her to accept him as a guest. Anna added that even then, she would not have defended him without the lady's command. Her words dropped with the chill and edge of ice. Suddenly, one of the men approached the hero and offered an apology. With surprise, Kai recognized Arnold, a familiar face from his past. The young man admitted that the servant's rudeness was his responsibility. Once again, he offered Kai a heartfelt apology for the offense and injustice he had caused. A sigh escaped the hero, as resignation settled in his chest. Years of enduring similar treatment had built up his tolerance, leaving him with no choice but to endure and keep moving forward. With a reassuring wink, Arnold beckoned him over to his tent, offering the promise of real food instead of those dry leftovers on the tray. The main character mumbled awkwardly that this was going a bit far, yet the young man only laughed in response. Advising that children should always speak honestly, he promptly called him to join, offering no pause for hesitation. Rising to his feet, Arnold brought his fist down hard on the counter. The sharpness of his movement carried no hint of aggression, instead radiating a firm demand for attention from the cooks. As the dishes arrived at the table, Arnold shot a sharp look at the plates before him. The meal bore no resemblance to what he had ordered. In his eyes, irritation flickered, and a wave of anger began to rise. With a commanding bark, he demanded more. The hero murmured a confused thank you, but the man waved off the gratitude, insisting it was simply what was owed. He had every right to lend a hand, adding with a playful remark that it was merely a formality. The easy smile he wore managed to soften the tension in the air. With a firm gesture toward the table, Arnold insisted that proper meals were not to be skipped, and encouraged healthy growth. Genuine concern filled his voice, a quiet layer of support beneath his command. Next, he mentioned that they needed to talk. He assured the protagonist not to worry about the rude man, since everything had already been taken care of. From that day forward, his meals grew larger than anyone else's. The others soon grew accustomed to it. Most importantly, the abuse and beating stopped. It became clear to him that he owed this change entirely to Arnold. An hour passed, and everything turned around. No one bullied him anymore or shoved him aside or humiliated him. Arnold earned his respect through quiet action instead of loud words. While the girl blessed with the gift of the sacred sword joined the squad dedicated to battling demons, Kiak, possessing the talent of a great mage, set off toward the capital to pursue his studies. One evening, a gentle knock sounded at the entrance of the tent. A familiar voice inquired politely if she might come in. Rose stood at the threshold, and her unexpected visit caught the hero off guard. Entering the room with a bright smile, she announced her decision to accompany him to the capital. Confidence sparkled in her eyes. A fleeting thought crossed the protagonist's mind. Perhaps she had heard about him from mutual friends. Unable to keep the question inside, he asked her directly. The girl nodded in agreement and added that Reno talked about him all the time. Her words were simple, yet they sent a sharp ache through his chest. A gentle laugh escaped her lips as she admitted to knowing more about him than even about their teacher. Embarrassment colored his face, the thought that she might have heard all his foolish tales sinking in. Yet Rose explained that her only wish was to meet the person who had meant so much to her friends. Curious, he then asked how Reno was doing and whether he was managing well in the squad. Rose responded with enthusiasm, as if there could be any other way. Her open-hearted nature instantly won over all the night watchmen. Though her words struck a nerve, the hero concealed any sign of pain. The maid gently reminded her lady that it was time to rest. Silence settled over the room, and Rose offered a slight nod in agreement. At that moment, thoughts of Anna crept into Kai's mind, stirring a flicker of unease within him. Weariness, however, washed over him more powerfully than any fear, making sleep an urgent necessity. His eyelids grew heavy, threatening to close at any moment. An unexpected young man appeared, startling the protagonist. He apologized for his abrupt arrival, yet his sincerity shone through. Noticing the hero's look of surprise, the young man began to explain. Gratitude filled his voice as he spoke about the conversation with Rose after the incident. That honest exchange allowed them to truly connect, and the happiness it brought showed in his gentle smile. Shifting uneasily, the hero replied that he had received enough gratitude. In truth, he felt thankful himself, grateful for being spoken to honestly and treated as an equal, despite often being seen as a failure. The conversation had found its way to his heart. Arnold admitted that, although he was no hero, he possessed a gift of his own, one he never considered a blessing. This gave him a deep understanding of what it meant to feel unworthy among others. Entrusting this task to him alone, the elder urged the need for strength. Every effort, he promised, would be rewarded in time. Gratitude shone in the hero's eyes as understanding dawned within him, and hope quietly returned to his heart. Everything unfolded perfectly as the Empire's elite squad stood poised for battle. The looming threats of the Black Panthers and the ogres no longer inspired fear, for the Lord himself commanded beside them. Not a single rat would slip through their vigilant ranks. As anticipated, Lord Enns and his unit arrived at the designated location. He addressed the captain directly, admitting that plenty of rumors had reached his ears, yet made it clear he had little patience for idle chatter. Without hesitation, he asked directly what was wrong with the princess. The atmosphere in the room instantly tightened, as anxious glances darted about. The subject was sensitive and edged with danger. A carefully orchestrated commotion seemed to swirl around them, its true purpose to drive a wedge between the princess and the captain of the knights. Worry flickered in their eyes, silent yet unmistakable. According to the plan, should the girl disappear from the stage, Prince Gilbert would become the next contender for the throne, enjoying the full support of the Lord. The companion objected, insisting the truth was simpler. They only wanted to marry her off. A sinister smile crossed the Lord's face as he remarked that she would become a plaything for the rest of her days. Anna intervened, urging everyone to seek a truce. The Lords apologized, admitting that nerves were frayed, and that arguing on foreign soil could bring disastrous consequences. Fraynton prepared to depart, offering a polite farewell to his allies. In his wake lingered a chill tension and the subtle suggestion of unfinished business. Enns cast a steady gaze at both of them and declared with unwavering resolve that he was counting on each of them. The firmness in his voice left no room for dissent, making it clear that their alliance needed to remain unbreakable. Meanwhile, the prince's supporters exchanged sly glances and rubbed their hands together in anticipation. The moment they had been waiting for had finally arrived. At last, a real chance presented itself to rid themselves of the princess forever. Joining the ranks stood the most formidable fighting force of the Glittenir Empire, 2 of its 6 commanders. Their unwavering confidence left no doubt that victory would soon be theirs. Their confidence remained unshaken. Defeat simply was not an option. The irritable princess would never ascend to the throne as queen. Should she retain power, the established order of the aristocracy might begin to falter. Within his thoughts, one of them quietly affirmed his purpose, telling himself it was all for a greater cause. The unshakable belief of the Fraynton family guided him, and determination set his path. He would see it through to the very end. The plan was set to unfold far from prying eyes, in a secluded spot reserved solely for them. This stage belonged to their secret, a place where every moment would pass unseen by outsiders. Suddenly, a stranger appeared before him, a young man whose presence unsettled the wrongdoer. Unanswered questions raced through his mind about the youth's identity and origin. Surprise flickered across the hero's face. He asked whether that person lived here. The boy's calm demeanor suggested he truly belonged to this place. The stranger responded in an odd manner, claiming his presence here was nothing more than a coincidence. Still, crossing paths with Kai did not seem likely to hinder whatever plans he had in mind. Quite the opposite. This will be fun, the boy said, a sinister smile curling on his lips. In that instant, the hero sensed danger and knew escape was the only option. Without hesitation, the need to flee overwhelmed him. An inexplicable terror gripped him as the mysterious man unleashed his demons upon him without warning or cause. The attacker's motives remained hidden, leaving him to wonder why death was being served to someone innocent who had done nothing to deserve such cruelty. A sudden realization struck the hero. A sharp shortage of air gripped his lungs. Pain clenched his chest, while his head throbbed with an unbearable intensity. The world blurred before his eyes as a tidal wave of panic surged through him. Frustration swept over him as his gift lagged behind just when he needed it most. Silently, he pleaded for a single chance, even now, as the distant sound of rumbling began to rise. The thunderous footsteps of the monsters drew closer with alarming speed. If they caught up, it would be over for him. It couldn't end like this. The thought that his life might end here, so suddenly and for nothing, seemed impossible to accept. The option to remain in Ramor stood before him. Embracing the path of the sword's heir, marrying Lila, and sharing quiet days with Reno and Kitch painted a life of gentle routine. Peace and stability lay within his grasp, close enough to touch. Now, lying in the heart of a silent forest, his life ebbed away under the onslaught of monsters. The so-called gift had brought nothing but misery. Then, a waterfall shimmered into view ahead of him, offering a final, desperate hope for escape. Clenching his fists, he made up his mind to survive. Not in this place. Not like this. With courage surging through him, he plunged straight into the heart of the waterfall. After stepping through the wall of water, he found himself in a strange, deserted place. The surroundings appeared dreamlike and unreal. Glancing around in confusion, he tried to make sense of his surroundings. Moments ago, the forest had surrounded him, yet now everything looked unfamiliar. This sudden change felt unreal. The entrance had vanished without a trace. Not a single sign of it remained. A nervous laugh escaped him, the sound of someone cornered and bewildered, lost in confusion. At that moment, brilliant rays of light lit up the space, revealing a system window before him. The display announced the activation of access for those with a divine-level gift and the attempted registration of a new player, Kai Heinemann. Disbelief clouded the hero's vision. The very gift, long dismissed as the weakest in existence, had just been named divine. A mistake, surely. Such a reality seemed impossible. Pressing the button summoned the rules before him. The first stated that leaving this place was only possible by finishing the game. According to the second, registered players did not age, as time stood still within these walls. The third rule promised each player a chest of items, the skill of identification, a pair of swift boots, and an unbreakable staff. The fourth and final rule limited the number of elixirs in the chest to 20 bottles. Once again, there were monsters. The hero clutched his head, struggling to comprehend. If this was reality, then everything seemed meaningless. Forcing himself to remain calm, he focused on rational thought. Among the items, there was a chest. If this chest was genuine, it could be his opportunity. With a press of the receive button, a pair of speed boots materialized before him. A surge of hope fluttered in his chest. Awe filled the hero as reality set in. The chest held genuine treasure. Gripping his prize, he realized he now possessed something others could only dream of. Alongside this fortune, he gained a skill for appraisal. With its guidance, the hero realized that the boots could greatly improve his chances of escaping from his enemies. This was exactly what he needed at that moment. There is, however, an important detail. If he initiates the fight, the effects of the boots disappear. Even so, their rank remains exceptional. Shock washed over Kai as he realized for the first time that escape could come so swiftly. The thought lingered. What if this ability truly held great value? At that moment, another idea surfaced. He should try to assess his own body, and to his surprise, he succeeded. His own profile appeared before him, displaying name, surname, and age. 15 years old. Health stood at 3, mana at 5. Under skills, the word gift emerged. The description noted he possessed the lowest potential, yet held a divine-ranked gift capable of growth if certain conditions were met. Kai fell into deep thought, pondering the meaning of those words. Under certain conditions. Did this gift reward those who made the effort, or did it grow stronger with every challenge overcome? The true nature of the gift remained elusive, yet the idea itself offered a quiet sense of hope. Uncertain about the true nature of the gift, he decided not to expect too much from it for now. Shifting his attention, he began to assess the next item, the elixir. At that moment, his gaze came to a sudden halt, watched as a stream of water flowed directly from the wall into the vessel. In that instant, the truth became clear. Here lay the source, the very origin of the elixir itself. Expecting to find a simple bottle, he instead discovered a stream flowing endlessly, defying all logic. The idea of a source that never runs dry seemed beyond comprehension. Without wasting time on hesitation, he chose to put his theory to the test. Drawing a blade across his hand, he let several drops of the liquid fall onto the fresh wound, awaiting the outcome. The wound on the arm vanished in an instant, leaving no trace behind. The transformation unfolded with such speed that it was almost impossible to believe. The elixir truly worked. Only now did the hero realize his extraordinary fortune. Once deemed the weakest person in the world, he had gained a trove of valuable items, acquired the power to appraise anything, and discovered a wellspring of eternal healing. Without wasting a moment, he carefully filled the chest with elixir. Grabbing a knife and a sturdy stick that could easily serve as a weapon, he prepared to move on. A cool hush filled the air. Calmness should settle in as he walked steadily along the wall. Just as the ancient books advised, everything was just as it should be. These were the very adventures he had always dreamed of. Suddenly, a monster appeared. Warm liquid trickled down his arm. Blood, perhaps his own. Panic surged through him once more. Paralyzed by terror, he wrenched his hand free from the monster's jaws and let out a wild, tortured wail, his voice raw with pain and fear. Just moments earlier, he had been speaking with Rose and stepping out of the tent. Now, chaos erupted as a man with striking crimson hair lunged at him without warning. Yes, the memories flooded back to him. That was exactly how it had happened. The events took place suddenly, leaving sharp imprints upon his mind. Delight surged within at the discovery of the elixir source and the power of his skill. But the memory of that monstrous creature ripping off his arm brought everything crashing down. In a moment of panic, he cast her into the spring, acting on pure instinct and without any kind of plan, desperate to salvage at least something from the chaos. The tension slowly ebbed away. Collapsing onto the ground, a sudden laugh escaped his lips. His hand was still there, alive and whole. He had survived. Success was finally his. Kai glanced down at himself, noticing blood spattered across his skin and his clothes torn to shreds. The disappointment lingered that even the elixir could not mend the fabric, but such concerns felt trivial now. Survival was all that truly mattered. Yet the time would come when he must descend into the dungeon once more. Fortune favored him this time, but fate often changes its mind. No one could predict what awaited him in the shadows below. The question surfaced in his mind once more, quietly persistent. Would his strength hold out as he navigated this unforgiving game, where mistakes left no room for pardon? He wondered if he had chosen to play of his own free will, or if, perhaps, the game had chosen him instead. The hero's thoughts shifted, no longer colored by fear but steeped in despair. Not faced with death itself, but confronted by the looming shadows of loneliness, hunger, and the slow drift into oblivion. 7 days had passed since solitude claimed him. All around, nothing but insects and empty stone pillars filled the desolate silence. Not a single soul appeared, nor any sign of escape. Hunger gnawed fiercely at his insides, doubling him over with pain. No trace of food could be found in this desolate place. His eyes landed, almost against his will, on the beetles skittering nearby. The thought brought a wave of disgust, yet desperation left him with no other choice. The truth was clear to him. His body desperately craved nourishment. Yet these insects seethed with such lethal poison that even a dragon would fall to their venom. Still, the thought of starving to death held no appeal. In the end, hesitation overwhelmed him. His hand trembled and he tossed the beetle aside. For now, his determination managed to resist the grip of despair. On the 15th day, a realization dawned upon him. The elixir alone could not sustain him. His body was growing weaker with each passing moment. Still, undeterred by his frailty, he pressed on and attempted once more. Darkness swallowed his vision as a roaring sound filled his mind, and a single thought rose within him. This was the end. The final breath hovered near, yet life still clung to him. A voice echoed within his mind, unmistakably not his own. It felt vast, unfamiliar, an entity that came from beyond. A voice announced the acquisition of a new skill. The requirement: survival after consuming a poisonous creature. Its rank is low, and to advance, one must endure the venom of 100 different creatures, each delivering a dose equivalent to 1,000 leaves. The realization struck him. A genuine skill had awakened. The elixir had come in handy, saving his life just in time and unveiling a new path forward. Apparently, he could not manage without the elixir. Just a few sips, and his headache vanished instantly. This liquid proved itself not only beneficial but also enchanted. The 100th day of isolation quietly slipped by. The system unveiled new conditions. Resistance to mild poisons had been achieved. To progress to the next rank, survival after consuming 1,000 poisonous creatures would be required. As this realization sank in, a smile played across the hero's lips. No matter how many poisonous creatures he devoured from now on, death would no longer claim him. He had become invulnerable. A year slipped away. Endless training and solitude left his mind reeling. Conversation became a private affair, words spilling out to himself and to his staff, which now felt as real as any sword. In his imagination, a powerful and striking adversary took shape, prompting the hero to engage in battle. Today, that challenge was directed at Roman, his own cousin. After claiming victory in his imaginary duel, he pressed the stick to his opponent's forehead. "Now I can defeat you too," he said aloud, releasing a tired sigh before offering Roman his thanks. Yesterday, he had managed to overcome his teacher. Even though the teacher existed only in his imagination, the victory was real to him. That very moment, the system spoke. He acquired the sword control beginner's skill. From now on, practicing with the sword would gradually enhance his abilities. Every day, he would spend 12 hours in duels, repeating this routine for 40 years. To reach the next rank, he would need to devote 120 years to relentless training. Confusion flickered across the hero's face. The term sword control was foreign to him, yet the concept seemed familiar, just like the imaginary battles he knew so well. And if this was only the beginning, then what lay ahead promised to be even more extraordinary. Resolute, he pressed onward, willing to persevere for 800 years if that's what it took. Every obstacle would be overcome, even if all he had left was eternity. In his mind's eye, he conjured formidable and seasoned opponents. Heroes of legend from the kingdom itself. There was the master swordsman who controlled countless blades, the famed twin-sword warrior Grami, a mighty elf, the spellblade mage Sherba, and the venerable sword emperor from the Glet Empire near Ashwan. He resolved to challenge adversaries of such caliber. More than 11,000 years had slipped by since the game began. For 3,000 of those years, the hero existed in an endless loop, battling, training, claiming victories, and enduring solitude. But now everything was about to change. Kai spoke quietly to himself, promising a new beginning. Every foe had fallen before him. His moment had finally arrived. All units had been wiped out, leaving only him standing. Even the Holy Sword had acknowledged his supremacy. Now, as the world's most formidable swordsman, his mastery over the blade had reached an unparalleled level. With no other option but to return, he summoned the image of his chest in his mind, opened it, and retrieved the beetles he had kept safe since the very beginning of his journey. Among them, one possessed a remarkable effect. It restored both health and mana equal to the damage received. Its rank stood at the very top. The hero made his decision. It was time to return, fully prepared for what awaited him. Stepping into the underground passage, he drew in the cold, fresh air. Once a source of fear, now a familiar comfort. A sense of calm settled over his heart. Swinging the stick, his very first sword, the origin of everything, memories flooded his mind. One day, he would surely return here. This place marked the beginning of his transformation. Suddenly, the familiar monster appeared before him, the very one that had wounded him long ago. Kai spoke quietly, asking if it was still there. Could this creature have waited for him through the passing of 3,000 years? A thrill stirred within the hero. Facing an unknown opponent promised a fascinating challenge. No longer just a hunt, this had become a search for truth. Perhaps this monster holds the key to understanding everything. It might point toward a path that Kai has yet to discover. Throughout the fight, he carefully studied each strike, landing 2 direct hits, though his blocks lagged behind. The opponent fought with an unusual style, yet still revealed flaws in his technique. At that moment, the system revealed a new attribute for Kai. His age had been halted, while his strength, endurance, intelligence, and luck each displayed a value of 0.2, yet all were marked with potential for growth. The realization dawned on him that every victory would raise his level. Glancing over his shoulder, he discovered the room stretched wide and unclaimed, a true giant among chambers. With every descent into the dungeon, the vastness steadily grew, until boundaries faded into nothingness. Peering into the chest, he noticed that barely any beetles remained. Meanwhile, all around the room, other creatures crawled. The venomous X-12 beetles, guardians of this level. A peculiar current resembling a swirling vortex caught his attention. Kay wondered if it might sweep him upward, but as he glanced at the unfamiliar beetles nearby, he realized he would have to eat them, no matter how revolting the thought. Advancing to a new stage, he came face to face with a monstrous creature known as the Killer Hornet. At last, a fresh challenge awaited him. Inspiration surged within the hero as he boldly challenged the monster to a duel. Before any move could be made, the enemy vanished from sight. As Kai struggled to piece together what had just occurred, an unseen strike severed his left arm. With unwavering determination, he deflected the invisible strikes, forcing himself to endure. At last, the enemy revealed himself, now visible, yet even more dangerous than before. In a flash, the creature moved, so quickly that Kai found himself momentarily stunned. Yet, despite its astonishing speed, each of the monster's attacks came in a straight, predictable line. The lack of variety left Kai feeling a touch disappointed. A curious detail caught his attention. Each time before the monster attacked, it paused briefly, as if delivering a silent warning to keep away. The creature's behavior seemed strange, almost human. The hornet unleashed its stinger at Kai, prompting him to wonder if there was something hidden within it. Clearly, this was no ordinary attack. A strange liquid seeped from the monster's body. Sensing possible danger, the hero immediately suspected a distant poison. Without hesitation, he took swift action. Relying on long-range attacks proved ineffective, offering little advantage. Realizing this, he chose a different approach. Kai activated his sword combat technique and charged into the fray. After an intense duel, he finally overcame the hornet. The system displayed a notification. The opponent had been completely eliminated. A new window appeared before him, announcing that the deadly hornet had been defeated and the first trial had been overcome. As a reward, the hero would receive a unique ability. As he processed the new information, something resembling a container materialized before him, drawing his full attention. Opening the container, he discovered a Flamberg flamethrower powered by atmospheric magic, capable of igniting anything it sliced through. Its classification marked it as an item of the highest rank. Astonishment flickered across Kai's face at the thought of a sword that could ignite everything in its path. Already armed with an unbreakable staff, he couldn't help but regard such an artifact as a true treasure. An idea sparked within him. To roast those repulsive beetles and, for once, eat them properly. The plan seemed crazy, yet undeniably practical. As he stepped forward, Kai noticed the entire floor seething with molten lava. He froze in place, recognizing a new challenge before him. At last, something truly worthy of his attention appeared. The only challenge left was figuring out how to cross the river of lava without any fireproof footwear. Attempting it bare would be impossible. After careful consideration, a decision took shape within him. The hypothesis must be tested. Should anything go awry, the nearby countercurrent would offer a swift escape. The swift boots found their way back into the chest, neatly set aside. Then, without hesitation, he moved on to his next task. Stepping onto the molten rock sent pain searing through his entire body. Kay instinctively jumped back, the agony too intense to endure. Without hesitation, he swallowed an elixir to keep himself alive. Suddenly, a system window popped up once more. Skill acquired, minor resistance to fire. This grants immunity to high temperatures. The requirement is to touch something hot 50 times. To raise the skill's rank, 500 touches are needed. Time and elixir remained at his disposal. Resolute, he made up his mind to endure, push forward, and erase this zone in a single breakthrough. Success became his companion. Fire no longer harmed him as he conquered levels 11 to 50, crossing the treacherous magma zone. Beyond that, levels 51 to 100 unfolded into a frozen realm, where standing still meant risking being encased in ice. Pressing onward brought him to levels 101 to 150, a desert expanse riddled with hidden traps. Delving even deeper, levels 151 to 200 submerged him in an undersea world, where he mastered the art of breathing underwater. Between levels 201 and 250, he battled through the howling winds and relentless blizzards of the wind zone. At last, the final stretch awaited. A staggering 213 levels of dazzling light, where blinding brilliance tested the limits of his vision. Battered by countless trials, the protagonist summoned the system window displaying his skills: minor and complete resistance to heat, ice, and dust, along with their absorption, evasion, identification, trap creation, water adaptation, underwater breathing, and buoyancy. A heavy sigh escaped his lips, marking the end of the era of mere survival. Now, the moment had come to move forward. With deliberate care, he wiped the sweat from his brow. Realization struck as Thunder Beast gloves replaced a towel to wipe his face. In that instant, the faint sound of dripping water reached his ears. Somewhere nearby, droplets fell. Alertness sharpened within him. He came to a halt, realizing there were no stairs leading down. The meaning of this was unclear, but before he could gather his thoughts, something unexpected happened. Realization dawned that this was the final trial awaiting in the upper layers. The battle with the monster was upon them, starting suddenly, without a hint of warning. The enemy fell in an instant, overwhelmed before resistance could even form. Noise filled the air, far greater than any true threat. Only the fading echo of defeat lingered where the monster once stood. Kane instantly detected the creature's weakness, sensing an easy victory ahead. Another monster toppled to the ground, defeated. Yet something about that strange voice lingered in his thoughts. Gazing downward, he caught sight of a monstrous fish churning beneath the surface. The creature's eyes glimmered like blades slicing through the darkness. A memory surfaced. Under certain conditions, players were granted special privileges. Perhaps that was exactly where he needed to go. The thought crossed his mind, wondering why. Yet his body had already launched downward before he could finish pondering. Glancing back after the battle, a sense of awe washed over him. This had been his very first fight beneath the waves, and he had navigated it flawlessly. Success was now his. As he returned, the system's voice echoed, hesitating slightly. The message was clear. The upper-level tests were complete. Thunder Tiger had been defeated, a rare achievement unlocked. Special privileges were now being granted. Yet something felt off. The voice faltered and stuttered unexpectedly. Suddenly, chests began tumbling down from the sky. Each one held a prize from the monster fish. Now the decision remained. Which chest to choose? Inside one of the chests, a sword awaited, pulsing with a life of its own. Something set it apart from ordinary blades. An understanding settled over the hero. This was not just a weapon, but a companion destined to join him on the journey ahead. 7,612 years had slipped by since the game began. Now, Kai stood at the crossroads of destiny. On the 350th level, a dragon monster appeared before him, majestic and formidable, standing as the next challenger in the battle. Although this dragon was smaller than the others, an air of menace surrounded it. The sense of danger only fueled a fierce determination within Kai. Blood surged through his veins as the challenge was issued, sparking a duel that erupted in an instant. Yet the clash ended swiftly, almost before it had truly begun. Kai still struggled to adapt to how swiftly everything seemed to pass. Moments earlier, the world had been locked in combat. Now, a deep silence had settled over everything. His blood ceased to flow, and every wound vanished. Instantaneous healing erased all traces, as though nothing had ever happened. The rules of the game resurfaced in his mind. Physical attacks held no power here. If a sword proved useless, then another solution had to be found. A thought flickered through his mind as he wondered what might overcome this dragon besides sheer physical strength. Suddenly, inspiration struck. Memories of the magical book he once discovered in a chest returned to him. Retrieving it from its hiding place, he opened the ancient pages and began to read. The book opened before him, each page revealing more content than he had hoped for, and a twinge of frustration settled in. Fortunately, its beginner-friendly approach kept him from drowning in an overwhelming sea of information. Eventually, his search led him to the answer. The book revealed that in order to use magic, one must forge a contract with the book itself. Strangely enough, reading was not required. For this so-called book was not truly a book at all. The contract stipulates that all knowledge will instantly settle into memory. Should anyone attempt to access or read it directly, a barrier will activate, risking harm to both memory and cognitive abilities. In the worst case, it could even result in death. Bitter thoughts filled the hero's mind as he realized that his own gift prevented him from forming a contract with a magic book. This meant he could never gain magic through the usual means, leaving him with no alternative path. Suddenly, a message from the system appeared, announcing the discovery of a new skill: resistance to magical poisoning, simplified decryption of spellbooks, and immunity to lethal effects while reading. The activation condition required translating over 100 types of ancient hieroglyphs. The skill's rank stood at intermediate, with 500 more translations needed for advancement. Among these abilities, the resistance to magical poisoning especially drew the hero's attention. More than 60 years had slipped by. Surrounded by thousands of ancient tomes, he finally started to grasp the true nature of magic. This newfound understanding brought with it a fresh sense of hope. Mastery of magic demanded innate talent. Lacking this gift, no contract with a grimoire would ever succeed. No amount of training could bridge that gap. Yet within this system, a different condition existed. Natural talent was unnecessary here. Sheer willpower was enough. That realization brought a sense of relief. Strength could be forged through determination alone. As the revival of the dragon drew near, Kai requested a brief moment. He was eager to share a discovery he'd found in his medical texts with someone. After all, the human body always offered new mysteries to unravel. The human body consists of countless cells forming its tissues and organs. Strengthening the body and accelerating healing beyond ordinary limits become possible when magical energy acts directly upon these tissues. Turning back to the dragon, a gentle smile crossed his face as he said, "Forgive me, my friend. Looks like I'll be your punching bag once more." The monster launched its assault. Calling upon the power of enmity without relying on magic, the hero stood firm. A torrent of fire burst forth from the dragon, yet Kai stepped in and intercepted the attack. The weapon now operated at a molecular scale, transforming the sword into a form of literal magic that could slice through the very fabric of matter. With a single precise strike from his energy blade, the dragon fell. No hesitation, no mercy. Harnessing the magic of the divine eye, which tracked every living being within a 500-mile radius, he spotted two figures. In that instant, excitement surged through his heart. These were the very ones he had long wished to use his magic on. Deadly crystals, carefully crafted for this moment, lay ready as his personal vendetta unfolded. For so long, he had awaited this moment, to meet their gaze and catch the glint of his own freshly spilled blood reflected within. That was his love. For 3.5 millennia, the cycle continued, each day bringing a new surge of affection, an unending wave of love threatening to engulf him entirely. With a surge of power coursing through his magical weapon, the hero declared, "This technique I dedicate to only one." In the twilight, eyes as clear as crystal watched quietly, while golden scales shimmered against the darkness. Within him, a soul burned with an unyielding desire for life. Should suffering become inevitable, so be it. The hero writhes in pain, struggling for breath, yet still steps forward to demand a fair duel. Everything must unfold according to the rules. His sword had yet to leave its scabbard. For thousands of years he had awaited this very moment, living for the chance to cross blades with the dragon. Whether he wished it or not, destiny demanded it. Yet, to his astonishment, the dragon shed tears, leaving Kai utterly stunned. The hero's voice trembled with indignation as he declared, having devoted 3,500 years to mastering magic for this moment, only to find his opponent in tears at the crucial hour. Just then, a system message appeared. The 8th trial was complete. The slaying of the golden dragon Fafnir had ended. Yet he had gained an unexpected advantage. The enemy had surrendered without a fight. Rage simmered in Kai as he demanded to know why. Desperate to understand who this person truly was, an astonishing truth emerged. The dragon yearned to become his friend. The enormous creature hardly seemed the type to trail behind anyone, its intentions difficult to believe at first glance. Yet the dragon's hide carried an enticing fragrance. For such a magnificent pelt, Kai mused with a sigh. 10 years would be a small price to pay. A woman's voice reached his ears, filled with both anxiety and an odd sense of comfort. Perhaps his mind was starting to falter. Enduring 10,000 years in isolation would test anyone's sanity. Gathering his courage, he pressed the button marked "Befriend the Dragon" and watched intently to see what would happen next. Suddenly, as if emerging from thin air, a girl stepped into view. She introduced herself as Fafnir, and she called him her master, her eyes sparkling with happiness. Pure joy lit her face as she realized she had finally met him at last. Confused, the hero realized that nothing remained of his old clothes and expressed gratitude for the new outfit. Fafnir then asked what should be done with the remnants of his previous attire. Should they be thrown away? He quickly objected, insisting that those were not just worthless rags. Now that they were together, he let her know he possessed an endless storage space. She could put them there. The girl, puzzled, asked why, since he would never wear them again. He replied it was unlikely, but just in case. A discreet mark appeared on his belongings, ensuring no one would accidentally throw them away. He then suggested to the girl that they return to the first level, where they might come across something intriguing. With a smile, he added, "And enjoy a good meal." Noticing the surprise on her face, he offered some advice. "There's no need to be so astonished. It's just a simple idea." Upon stepping into the house, he revealed to her a slab of meat that had come from a thunder cow on the 290th level. Anticipation rooted the girl to the spot. Kai revealed the sword to her, a flaming flamberge. Long ago it had fallen into his possession, yet until now it had never proven useful in battle. At last, the blade found its calling, grilling meat over the crackling fire. With a few skilled motions, a mouth-watering golden crisp dish awaited them, ready to be savored. The sight of the succulent meat captured Fafnir's full attention, her eyes gleaming with anticipation as she asked if she could already devour such a masterpiece. A gentle smile played on Kai's lips as he nodded, mentioning the only seasoning used was salt, and not just any salt, but a special kind. This salt had been harvested from seawater, found between levels 107 and 180, a stretch inhabited by extraordinary monsters. Its flavor was truly one of a kind. When he served the meat seasoned with it, Fafnir devoured the dish so swiftly that his hand nearly became an accidental addition to her meal. "That's no longer a steak. Give me my hand back," he shouted, frustration edging his voice. Still needing to prepare the meal, the girl muttered softly under her breath. The creature seemed to find its owner just as delicious, munching away with both cheeks puffed out, letting out a contented bubble and murmuring, a masterpiece." Before each meal, he always made sure to swallow a small dose of elixir. His appetite seemed boundless as he ate, yet his thoughts wandered to the food itself, finding nothing particularly remarkable about the dish. Yet there was something extraordinary about her. For the first time in 10,000 years, everything tasted richer, felt warmer, more genuine. It was as if a long-lost fragment of the soul had quietly slipped back into place. An unfathomable sensation swept over him. The gnawing anxiety and obsession that had tormented him for centuries seemed to dissolve, fading away like mist in the glow of the setting sun. Once, he had yearned for bloodshed as he stood before the golden dragon. Now, faced with her shy smile, that old craving could no longer stir within him. Kai speculated aloud that this might be one of the 4 privileges. Fafnir, caught off guard, asked for clarification. He explained that since they had both claimed victory, they both stood to benefit. Deep within, the title of the most terrifying demon still clung to him. There was no doubt in his mind, and denying it seemed impossible. "Who do you think I am?" he asked. Without a word, Fafnir pressed her hand against his armor and replied with a calm certainty, "I will bring you down, beautifully." A quiet sigh slipped from him, as if accepting that he now needed to set an example. Father, mentor, guide. Her unwavering loyalty suggested she would follow him without hesitation into any battle. Kai shouted at the demon, demanding surrender and promising mercy if he yielded. No longer did Kai wish to claim another life. From that moment he resolved to prevent any unnecessary deaths. Unprovoked, he shows mercy to all, from the tiniest beetles to the mightiest dragons. The person he once was no longer remains. In front of him stood not just an enemy, but a degenerate servant of Mari, the most powerful ruler this world had ever known. This figure embodied the remnants of an old era. Still, even this warrior does not deserve to remain, not even as ashes scattered across the earth. No place exists for him in the new world. Kai tossed aside the skewer of meat, gripped his sword, and delivered a powerful blow. With a weary grumble, The hero remarked that excessive chatter was beginning to grate on his nerves. Had the enemy surrendered sooner, this drawn-out exchange could have been avoided. A murmur swept through the crowd, while Fafnir declared with delight that she had never once doubted him. The hero halted her with a stern warning, pointing out how casually she spoke about killing. In response, she offered a simple explanation, admitting that hunger was the only thing driving her. Approaching the chest, Kai announced that he would prepare more meat. As he searched, his hand brushed against the Book of Triumphs, an artifact said to contain the souls of creatures vanquished in divine trials. Whoever possesses this tome and forms a pact can summon the beings sealed within. Recognized as an artifact of the highest rank, it left Kai wondering if such a rare treasure could truly have dropped from the boss. The system suggested adding Eurymachus's soul to the catalog. An opportunity presented itself. Without waiting for permission, Fafnir pressed the button. Kai protested with a frustrated shout, demanding to know why she hadn't asked first. Astonishment colored his voice as he pondered the process of summoning these beings. The realization dawned that it was now possible to call forth such creatures. Leafing through the book, he recognized it as a true discovery. The idea crossed his mind. Why not clear the first level once more and add everyone to the catalog? Calling out to Fafnir, he announced their return to the surface, explaining he had something to check. The only reply he received, however, was a weary voice murmuring about hunger. Sometime later, a girl approached on the first level. Her lips curved in a gentle smile, and inquired about his activities. Kai calmly explained that he was preparing to summon Yrmehala, the creature they had once captured together. Fafnir recalled the one with the large nose, remembering how the hero had slain him. The hero muttered irritably under his breath, clearly still troubled by the monster's memory, even in death. Suddenly, two figures emerged before them. Kai pointed and announced that this was the newly minted god, urging everyone to take a look. One of them bristled with anger and snapped, "I refuse." Who does he think he is anyway? Kai, undisturbed, remarked calmly that once again, his words were falling on deaf ears. Yrymachus sprang to his feet and snapped a sharp salute, greeting with a crisp, "Good morning, sir," just like a soldier standing before a general. Before he could finish speaking, Kai struck him across the face with his staff, muttering that he was too slow, then brought it down again, showing no hint of mercy. The hero barked out that a quick answer had been necessary. Face down in the dust, the demon rolled about, offering fervent apologies as he groveled at the hero's feet. Wonder flickered across Kai's face as he watched the scene unfold. Yrymachus cried out in anguish, calling himself a worthless insect crawling through the dirt. Kai responded with a hint of disbelief, suggesting that even bugs were more impressive than him. Yrymachus vehemently disagreed, insisting that he was beneath them all, the lowest of the low. At that moment, Fafnir awoke, stretched languidly, and murmured a sleepy good morning. Yrymachus, delighted, playfully dubbed her a trash beetle as well, then confessed with a grin that he considered himself even worse. The shock made Kai jump to his feet. "What have you done? Now she calls me a beetle too." "I'm a garbage beetle too," Fafnir announced calmly. The hero clutched his head in exasperation and groaned that everyone had turned into beetles because of her. As punishment, he ordered 50,000 push-ups. Without protest, the demon dropped to the floor and began her task. Sometime later, the team descends underground, ready to continue filling the Book of Souls with the names of defeated creatures. Kai added in a thoughtful tone that he wanted to try out the thing Yrymachus had discovered yesterday. A note of caution crept into Yrymachus's voice as he asked if this was another artifact meant to boost their power. The hero explained that these were the gauntlets of divine seal. With their power, he could personally restrain his own strength, dialing it down to its very limit. The theory went that by dropping one's health to a critical level and skirting the edge of death before snatching victory, one's abilities would surge to new heights. A faint smile played on Fafnir's lips as she pointed out the obvious risk. Losing meant real death. Wariness crept into the demon's thoughts, suspecting that something was deeply wrong with Kai. Many years had passed since the game began. On the 700th underground level, no trees or stones could be found, only a scorched earth beneath a crimson sky. Fafnir gestured off to the side, remarking that something was over there. Kai realized that this was a zone where temperatures exceeded 200 degrees. Prolonged stay in this place meant certain death. A sigh escaped him as he wondered aloud if the boss was present, realizing it must be the ailing phoenix. In the very heart of the blazing zone, a bird sat nearly motionless. At the sound of approaching footsteps, it slowly lifted its head and asked in a weary voice, "Who's there? New faces, perhaps?" Phoenix muttered thoughtfully, noting how long it had been since anyone last set foot here. Meanwhile, Kai turned to Fafnir, eager to hear his opinion on the matter. Until now, Kai had never realized her fondness for chicken. Perhaps, though, he suspected she wasn't referring to the dish at all, but to something entirely different. Kai remarked to the girl, pointing out that as a lady she shouldn't eat so much. With calm composure, she explained that he simply looked too delicious to resist. Phoenix watched them in confusion, unable to grasp the meaning of their conversation. Kai then concluded that no matter how you looked at it, it was just an enormous chicken. The monster flapped its wings in protest, demanding to know who had dared call it a giant. Kai quickly tried to calm the creature, explaining that he only meant it as a joke. However, the moment the word ingredient slipped from his mouth, the Phoenix's eyes flashed with indignation, clearly offended by such insolence. Phoenix screeched, voice sharp with outrage at the slight, unable to bear what he saw as an unforgivable insult to a being of his divine stature. Fury burned in his eyes, every feather bristling with the urge to make Kai pay for this offense. Clad in shimmering armor, Fafnir declared with solemn confidence that she would handle the troublesome feathered demon herself. Her gaze flicked toward Kai, and an impatient smile danced on her lips, betraying the suspicion that her interest lay less in battle and more in savoring a delightful meal. A skeptical sigh slipped from the hero as he muttered, "She just wants to eat him." Suddenly, the system window flickered into existence. Trial to defeat the Phoenix initiated. An old flicker of surprise crossed Kai's thoughts. It had been a long time since he had seen something like this. Surprise flickered across Phoenix's face as he exclaimed, "Are you serious? Are you talking about me?" Fury blazed in his eyes, yet hints of uncertainty began to seep through his once unwavering confidence. With unwavering pride, Fafnir recited the names of her techniques flawlessly. She turned her gaze to Kai, her eyes glinting with anticipation, and gave a clear command. "Master, prepare the fire. It's time to roast this bird." Remarkably, that was exactly what he had been about to suggest. Kai mused to himself that if the bird wasn't killed, perhaps there might be another way to use it. Meanwhile, Phoenix grumbled quietly, growing weary of these kinds of tactics. A fierce grin spread across Kai's face as he declared how long it had been since battle last made his blood burn. Now was the moment to test the limits of this immortal bird. While Kai was warming up, Phoenix shouted instructions to keep him from overheating. Fafnir watched the duel intently, her gaze curious and sharp, as if she were studying an unfamiliar dish on a menu. A thought crossed her mind. She wondered how long this demon could endure without taking a breath, and how much longer this performance would continue. Everything concluded with Kai's final blow. He could hardly believe it himself, yet the Phoenix had truly been defeated. The legendary bird, magnificent and proud, now lay lifeless on the ground. Apparently, the monster simply needed to be crushed. The system verified its complete eradication. As Kai glanced back, something gleaming caught his eye amid the pile of ashes. Raising the radiant orb, the system instantly notified him. A soul of the immortal phoenix bird had been detected. Fafnir quickly inquired whether it should be added to the catalog. Anger flashed across Kai's face. "Immortal, you say? He's dead." The words slipped out between clenched teeth. Unable to contain his frustration, he struck the bird's lifeless body once more, muttering something inaudible under his breath. Fafnir fixed him with wide, disapproving eyes. Kai recognized his blunder immediately. Despite good intentions, his attempt had fallen flat. Muttering under his breath, he tried to justify himself, insisting that she was a lady, and such words were inappropriate. She simply sighed and replied, "You're a poor master." Those words stung more than any scolding could. Gently, the hero brushed his hand over her head, a quiet thought lingering in his mind. "Truly, I am a poor excuse for a dragon father." After a brief pause, he softly called her to come home. Fafnir drifted into deep contemplation. Her name carried the meaning of dragon, not just any dragon, but a divine one. The countless days spent in this dungeon had blurred her memories, and the reason for her presence here slipped further from her grasp. Perhaps, long ago, someone entrusted her with the task of guarding these levels. Centuries slipped by, and only now did a powerful longing awaken within her. A desire to truly live, rather than merely obey commands. With a single powerful swing of his sword, he shattered the wall behind her, but the protective barriers shielded her from harm, leaving her completely unscathed. Long ago, someone told her that one day, a savior would come to set her free. When that moment arrived, she chose to follow him. They began living side by side, a friendship slowly blooming between them, and soon his intimidating presence felt much less frightening. It turned out he was exceptionally kind and had a remarkable talent for cooking. For the first time in many years, someone began to care for her. Warmth filled her heart, and the shadow of loneliness that once lingered seemed to fade away. After wiping her cheeks, a smile brightened her face as she asked for another helping. The breakfast had been so delicious that she had eaten every last bite. Gazing at her plate, she realized this was already her third breakfast, and the clock showed it was nearly noon. It was time to move on. Disappointment clouded her face, but a smile played on his lips as he revealed a packed lunch, her favorite meal. Instantly, joy lit up her expression. Stepping outside, they found a squad already assembled ahead of them. Jury McCallow greeted them warmly and announced that he brought news. The hero welcomed the meeting with delight, expressing his trust in their abilities. The squad wished him a safe journey, while he, in turn, instructed them to prepare dinner and draw a hot bath. By evening, everything needed to be in order for his return. The journey began with the girl at his side. Along the way, Fafnir sensed the deep respect everyone held for her master, and realized that his words of praise were the greatest reward she could ever receive. Upon arriving at the scene, the girl dove straight into battle, honing her technique. Her strikes grew sharper and more precise with every attempt. Victory at last. Bursting with joy, she announced her success. Once more, everything had worked out in a single stroke. The task was complete, all thanks to her efforts. The experience delighted her so much that she wanted to share it with him. Yet it seemed her words failed to reach him. Lost in contemplation, the hero barely noticed the world around him. Only the sound of her voice pulled him from his thoughts, prompting a start. With a nod of approval, he praised her quietly. Once again, you did it in one strike. Well done. In that moment, a strange sense of loneliness washed over Fafnir. Though her master seemed to be near, an unbridgeable distance kept them apart. While passing by the balcony, her ears caught the sound of Lyle's name. Peering through the doorway, she spotted him leaning against the railing. Lost in thought, as his gaze drifted into the distance, that name resonated within him with an uncanny significance. Each time it reached his ears, it felt as though a fragment of his soul slipped quietly away. A lonely, pained look settled in his eyes. The floor creaked beneath her feet, drawing his attention. As he turned, he caught sight of tears shimmering in her gaze. In a gentle voice, he asked whether a bad dream had troubled her sleep. A small nod confirmed it. A knowing smile touched his lips, as he admitted that nightmares sometimes visited him too. Guiding her back to bed, he reminded her that tomorrow awaited them in the depths of the dungeon. As they settled down, the girl whispered softly, wanting reassurance. He quietly promised her he would never leave her side. Once again, she asked if he would ever leave her, or if he might one day betray her. The hero assured her that he would never abandon her, nor would he ever deceive her. She already knew that, didn't she? In a gentle voice, she gave a quiet nod of affirmation. At that moment, Kai wondered aloud if she had ever told him even a single lie in her entire life. Fafnir assured him that she never had. The hero drew her into a gentle embrace and whispered that honesty had always guided his words. A vow from the depths of his soul bound them together, promising they would remain side by side for all eternity. Joy blossomed in her heart as she reflected tenderly on the depth of her love for her master. He vowed once more that they would never be parted again. Faces from his memories flickered by. Those he had defeated, those he had saved, and those who had once stood by his side. It all traced back to that very first journey to the capital. To escape the dungeon, completing the cleansing was essential. Fortunately, during the battles, he managed to halt time outside and eliminate millions of enemies. The sorcerer, despite being the final boss, took one look at Kai's stats and immediately surrendered. Any chance of understanding his opponent vanished before he knew what was happening. He inquired if Kai had arrived with his friends, sensing that someone else might be nearby. Both shouted at once, declaring their desire to kill the man. Yet the hero stepped in, halting them. He would handle the matter himself. Curiosity flickered in Kai's eyes as he searched for answers. Calmly, He assured everyone that the situation was under control. Trust in the divine seal upon his gloves anchored his hope. Across from him, the man only scoffed and sent his monsters toward Kai, amusement dancing on his lips. Conviction filled him that Kai had no grasp of the peril closing in around him. Still, doubts lingered. The hero never even drew his sword. With a few swift strikes, he dispatched his foes, conserving his strength. The enemy's fingers twisted into knots as a shriek tore from his lips, and he ordered the monsters to attack. Kai unleashed the true art of the sword. With a single movement, the monsters vanished without a trace. Undeterred, the enemy pressed on and called for another assault. Kai unleashed the deadly line, swiftly erasing the remaining monsters from existence. Astroff noted indifferently that such a small fry hardly counted as an enemy. Its destruction came in an instant. Meanwhile, Fafnir reveled in the victory, delight coloring her every movement. A flicker of anxiety crossed the hero's mind. A sense of duty stirred within him to shield Princess Rosemary. Doubt lingered, however, about whether his strength would suffice should the Emperor's sword make its appearance. With careful concern, Astroff inquired whether Kai's thoughts had taken a dark turn. Meanwhile, Fafnir busied herself by burying the red-haired foe, leaving only his head exposed above the earth. Somewhere amid the tent camp, the princess caught the sharp snap of branches and the distant sound of shouting from outside. A guard burst into the tent, announcing that the enemy was launching an attack and ordering everyone to prepare. The princess turned to her attendant with a sharp inquiry, asking who was behind the assault. The response came quietly. It was the Imperial Army. Somewhere among the guards, a traitor had emerged. The princess ordered a retreat, yet her loyal maid had no idea where to run. Their escape led them directly into a squadron commanded by Lord Fracton stood before her, his betrayal etched into every line of his face. Fury burned in her eyes, searing with the pain of his treachery against the kingdom. Doubt clouded her mind as she tried to accept that her own brother could be a traitor. The Lord, in contrast, merely gave a curt reply. Should Rosemary marry the Empire's third prince, and Gilbert ascend to the throne, the nation's salvation would be assured. He believed his actions served the good of his homeland. Yet, to the princess, they felt like nothing but betrayal. At that moment, a warrior emerged from the shadows. Introducing himself as the chief swordsman Arnold, he offered a swift apology for his tardiness and requested that the enemy be left for him to handle. The warrior raised his sword and challenged the lord, but his strike fell short. The young warrior stepped in, catching Arnold off guard. Arnold was taken aback. At last, a true rival stood before him. The warrior introduced himself as Zignil Gastria, determined to prove the extent of his abilities. Arnold leaned in, seeking confirmation. Was he truly the Empire's new sword? The clash that followed erupted in a storm of steel, blades flashing and striking through the air like bolts of lightning. From a distance, the girls watched in awe as the fierce duel unfolded before them. The two opponents appeared perfectly matched in strength. Then, without warning, everything changed. A serpent slithered out from the shadows. Arnold froze for a moment, yet dared to ask if they truly thought something like that could frighten him. Zignil shouted at his companion, ordering him not to interfere. Anna remembered the utmost priority now was to protect the princess. Yet the worst had come to pass. One of the guards seized the princess. Surrounded and out of escape routes, she was dragged in opposite directions by the traitors. Ence entrusted her safety to the Lord. But the situation remained dire. Meanwhile, Zignil and Ence moved farther away from the camp. Turmoil gnawed at Zignil's heart, unfinished words weighing heavily on his mind. Meanwhile, confusion clouded Anna's thoughts as she struggled to grasp what was happening around her. Suddenly, heads toppled one after another, as if sliced cleanly by an invisible blade. The opponent proved to be the weakest in history, even calling himself the most pitiful of all. Extending a hand, Kai helped Rosemary to her feet, and she offered her sincere gratitude. Warriors cloaked in black witnessed the monsters coming to Kai's aid, and, seized by panic, turned and fled into the depths of the forest. The monsters greeted their master with eager anticipation. Receiving a nod from Astaroth, they understood it was time to dispose of the unwanted intruders. Grabbing Lord Fracton firmly by the collar, she signaled the commencement of his well-deserved retribution. Kai nodded his approval. The princess gazed at him in astonishment, struggling to believe this was truly the same Kai she once knew. In her childhood memories, Rena Grot, the wielder of the Holy Sword, remembered him as a gentle and unremarkable boy. Calling out to Arnold and Anna, She noticed their bodies encased in peculiar soft spheres. A wave of anxiety washed over the princess as she paused to ponder the strange sight. Anna offered reassurance, mentioning that everything was under control. The slimes busied themselves tending to the wounds of every injured person, including the princess herself. Kai ordered all the slimes to return to the Book of Triumphs. Arnold watched in awe at the power Emma displayed. Curiosity got the better of him as he wondered how such a thing could be. Kai calmly explained that, technically speaking, it wasn't even considered a summoning. All the while, Fafnir sulked like a child, feeling left out and longing for a word of praise. Kai made sure to praise every one of his monsters, remembering each by name. They were no longer just servants to him, but had grown to become true friends. Suddenly, Arnold spotted the enemies and scoffed at their presence, dismissing them as a pitiful sight. One of the warriors remarked that restraining the girl was a simple task. Zignal replied that this was exactly why they had to handle everything themselves from the very beginning. This time, Zenil requested that no one interfere. He insisted on finishing the fight himself, determined to kill his opponent. The sheer force of their blows triggered an explosion that sent both warriors flying in opposite directions. With a look of surprise, the princess turned to Arnold and asked why Zignil's attacks had left Kaya unharmed. After a moment's reflection, he replied that the hand wielding the sword held far too much experience. An unbridgeable gulf lay between them, tens of thousands of years of relentless training. That was why their fight lacked balance. Kai carried an advantage earned over countless ages. Kai understood well that Zignil was a gifted swordsman. The title of Imperial Sword had not been given to him by chance. Rage flickered across Jens's face, while Zignil stood hollow-eyed, his sword lost and his posture betraying utter helplessness. Rage boiled within him, the certainty growing that to save the Empire, he must lay waste to everything around him. Flames engulfed the earth as the cloaked warriors scattered in chaos, bewildered by Ens's actions. With a single step, Kai crushed the Spirit King as effortlessly as one might snuff out a glowing ember. From the depths of hell, Jorma bowed before him and hailed him as a mighty lord. Brimming with joy at having been summoned, Kai summoned Faf and Astaroth, realizing there was no reason to linger any longer. The moment had come to continue their journey. One of the warriors pleaded for Kai to join Prince Gilbert, the future king. Arnold, however, responded with a fierce tone, his voice cutting through the moment. Even though Kai had once saved Amelia, mocking the royal family could never be forgiven. Faf and Astaroth immediately stepped forward to defend their master. The princess calmly requested that Anna stay out of the matter. Anna could not grasp the need to pause, yet Rosemary reassured her with a gentle smile that everything was fine. Her dream centered on establishing a new nation, where their powers could unite in harmony. Even if it meant giving up her own title, she was willing to make that sacrifice. When Kai asked if she truly intended to relinquish her throne, Rosemary affirmed without hesitation. Now, he stood as her first girl in the Empire and took command of an army of parasites, leaving the beast folk in astonishment. The guild itself had fallen into disarray. The princess confessed that within the royal court, trust was a rare and precious thing, entirely absent. As for Kai, dreams of glory or wealth held no appeal. All he sought was the strength needed to conquer the Imperial Sword. Finding a better guardian would be impossible. With a graceful gesture, she extended her hand to Kai, inviting him to become her protector. Accepting meant he had to kiss her hand and swear an oath. Kai squeezed her hand firmly, confidence in his grasp. Rosemary responded with a smile, counting on his support. Astaroth let out a quiet huff, clearly unimpressed by yet another predicament. Yet Kai insisted, by following the princess, he would inevitably cross paths with formidable foes. Fafnir both agreed and objected. Only he should remain by the girl's side. Ultimately, though, the matter rested in Layla's hands. The princess penned a letter and entrusted it to Arnold. In her account, she exposed Lord Frakt's betrayal and the clandestine alliance with the Empire. She suggested that Renee, surprise flickered across her face. Her childhood friend Kai Kun had effortlessly dealt with all the Imperial soldiers on his own. Noticing her quiet smile, Kai asked the reason behind it. Rosemary simply replied, there was nothing special. Inside a cozy little tavern, she watched him thoughtfully. In her letter, she had written that this boy was truly dependable. Now the two of them journeyed side by side. Without his presence, I would have had no choice but to seek help from the Holy Sword Mistress, Rena Grot. Kai paused, lost in thought. The princess nodded, her gratitude still shining in her eyes, and wondered if she might ask for one more favor. Meanwhile, Fafnir and Astaroth slept soundly, the little dog curled up beside them. Kai called out, announcing that it was time to wake up. Wrapped in a bedsheet, Fafnir inquired softly about what had happened. Kai explained that today, everyone would be exploring the city together. Fafnir burst into laughter while the dog started barking. Drawn by the commotion, the princess arrived with Anna at her side. Anna inquired about the situation, and Rosemary greeted everyone with a cheerful good morning. Fafnir returned the greeting. While running a brush through Fafnir's hair, the princess asked if she could join Kai in gathering the ingredients for the cake. Fafnir's surprise was evident at the mention of cake. After a moment, curiosity sparked within her, leading her to ask if she might try her hand at baking something as well. Rosemary's answer was thoughtful. She admitted her skills hadn't reached Kaya's level yet, but her desire to express gratitude remained strong. This promised to be a wonderful opportunity. Fafnir's eyes sparkled with excitement. Meanwhile, Kai summoned Namia from the book and assigned him the task of guarding the princess as they explored the city. Namia accepted the responsibility without hesitation. In the wide-open gathering place of the beast folk, memories surfaced for Kai, memories of his huntress mother, whose greatest wish was to visit this place with him, even just once in her lifetime. A sudden noise broke the silence. Astaroth wondered aloud about its source. Kai suggested they take a look. The memory of Fen, the missing dog, stirred in Fafnir's mind. Winding their way through the bustling crowd, they caught sight of a vendor eagerly praising the year's finest fruit, a paparat, offering it to an intrigued aristocrat. With quiet dignity the gentleman smiled. In the crowd, a hushed voice whispered about him. "Did you see that man?" The aristocrat's anger flared. This was unacceptable. The fruits had turned out to be rotten. At that moment the realization struck both Kai and Astaroth. They themselves had ruined those fruits. The aristocrat responded by launching into threats. The order was clear. Face execution for disrespect, or deliver a staggering 50 million as compensation. Outrage swept through the townspeople, for such an enormous amount was far beyond their reach. Kai let out a sigh, weariness settling over him as the familiar Franton aristocrats returned to the scene. Astaroth suggested stepping in, and he replied that the thought had already crossed his mind. Surprise flickered across the aristocrat's face upon discovering that the Guild of the Four Saints had come here. Reluctantly, Getty agreed, but insisted that the vendor supply better quality fruit in the future. Relief swept through the crowd as one person remarked how fortunate it was that the guild had intervened. Fafnir continued to watch Fina, softly calling his name. A stranger approached the boy with the basket and harshly called him an ungrateful wretch. Others joined in, muttering that his father had angered the count. Someone called him a half-beast, claiming that was the reason he hadn't noticed the smell of rotting fruit. Besides, now no one would buy the paparo. Outrage surged within the beastman, troubled by the thought of how farmers were supposed to survive. In response, he received only a cold wish for his demise. Fruits tumbled from his backpack, scattering across the ground as the crowd trampled them underfoot. Crashing to the pavement, a memory surfaced. Together with his father, he once nurtured the finest harvests. The thought crossed his mind. If only the power of a true hunter flowed through his veins, none of this would have ever become an obstacle. Suddenly, Fen appeared, growling fiercely as he placed himself protectively in front of the boy. The beastman stared in astonishment, unable to believe the dog was standing guard over him. A glowing tattoo shimmered on Fen's body, casting an uncanny light. One of the men shouted, demanding to know what kind of dog this was, and ordered it to be crushed. Kai quickly called out, stopping Fen in his tracks with a firm voice, reminding him that no fire was allowed in the city. The crowd turned toward them in astonishment. Delight sparked in Fafnir's eyes upon seeing Fen reappear. The dog offered a quiet apology for dashing ahead of everyone else. The crowd could hardly conceal their astonishment at hearing a canine speak. Meanwhile, one of the attackers muttered gruffly that tourists should mind their own business and stay out of local matters. Kai's voice rang out, frosty and sharp. Without hesitation, he launched forward and delivered a forceful kick, striking his opponent with precision and power. One of the bandits shouted that this was exactly what they had been waiting for, then ordered his men to launch an attack. The beastman barely had time to blink before everything changed. Kai moved with such incredible speed and precision that the situation turned around in an instant. Frozen in place, the tattooed attacker sat on the ground and whispered in a trembling voice that it was a monster. Kai gently placed the healing beastman slime atop the boy's head, and suggested expressing gratitude to Fen. The boy bowed his head in sincere thanks. Kai ordered Astaroth and Fafnir to take the boy to Rosemary and hide him far away. Something rotten lurked in the city, spreading a stench that seeped from within. Later, the princess baked a cake and offered it to everyone. Delight lit up Fafnir's face as the mouth-watering aroma filled the air. Anna tasted the cake and found it genuinely delicious. With a hint of pride, the princess mentioned that this was her first time using the dining hall's oven herself. Anna erupted with anger, declaring she would never forgive Kai for leading the princess into danger. While Rosemary struggled in vain to calm her, Kai turned to Roz and said, "Even if you are a princess, you won't just stay silent, will you?" Announcing his intentions, he declared his wish to gather all the beast folk together and hold a council. The news left everyone stunned. In a hidden chamber, the Count, the Mayor, and Cider gathered around a sturdy table. Cider offered praise for the spectacle with the rotten fruit, remarking that the enchanting illusion had succeeded perfectly. With calm assurance, the Count replied that no one would ever suspect their secret alliance. The plan called for the next visit to be the Coin Guild. Nearby, a beastman eavesdropped on the conversation, his eyes widening in disbelief. Cider declared their intention to save the city by crushing the beastman uprising. Every beastman will be captured and sold into slavery, while mercenaries erase all traces of the operation. One more payment is all they require. A toast was raised to Prince Gilbert. Beelzebub, one of Kaya's loyal subjects and a master of interrogations and torture, uncovered a plot unfolding in the shadows. The scheme involved provoking the bandits to attack, blaming the beast folk, and driving them out of the city. Accepting such a plot proved difficult. Anna leaned in and whispered to the princess that there was no time left to appeal to the king. In response, Rosemary calmly assured her that Kai would handle everything himself. A beastman grumbled about having no intention of listening to such nonsense and stalked off. Another asked what they were supposed to believe now. A third wondered aloud what would happen if all of it turned out to be true. The beastman, whom Kai had rescued, remembered how his parents must already be overcome with worry. No one could possibly believe such a nightmare. Kai gently stroked his head and asked in a soft voice what he desired. Lost in thought, the young man clenched his fists and declared with unwavering resolve that they would not let the Parkba fruit be destroyed. Determination gleamed in his eyes as he vowed to protect them. This city had fallen into the hands of these fools. The other beastman glanced his way, clearly lost as to what he might be thinking. Someone wondered aloud if the fruit from the Zarba family had ever spoiled, but the boy calmly insisted that such a thing could never happen. Those fruits always remained fresh. Nearby, another beastkin mentioned that everything on the square had already seemed suspicious. Tension simmered, as another voice declared they would not let this go unpunished. The crowd stood frozen, lost in thought. Meanwhile, Keish gazed down from above and declared, "Either victory will keep you alive, or defeat will bring your end." Kai explained that this was not just power, but a legacy handed down through his family. The boy introduced himself as Shiro and expressed his gratitude to Kai. Yet the man held up a hand to stop him, insisting that thanks were unnecessary. It was their own duty to defend their city. One of the girls spoke up softly, pointing out that most of them were women, children, and farmers. Fighting was not a skill they possessed. Someone else wondered aloud what they could possibly achieve in just a few days. Kai assured them he could handle the bandits on his own, but warned that he couldn't protect the city forever. Unless the beast folk chose to defend their home themselves, all his efforts would be in vain. For those willing to fight for freedom and the promise of tomorrow, he is prepared to give everything he has. Now, a single question remains. Who will stand with him? The princess glanced at Kai with a hint of confusion, unsure of his intentions. Meanwhile, deep within a forest cave, Silka and a few others discussed whether to resurrect the demon Touty and unleash it upon Papra. For Tio and the others, such a task seemed trivial. The girl reminded them, her tone firm, that 100 million was no small sum. She urged the boys to handle everything with care and precision. They replied that before long Papra would crumble into ruins. Unlike the weaker demons, failure was not an option for them. The third shouted, "How dare you insult Lady Nil?" She was, after all, Midsummer herself. Yet Neil firmly put an end to the argument. The young man declared he was acting on behalf of Germa. With a flicker of magic, he ordered her escorts to vanish. No one managed to utter a single word before the boy spoke. Niall opened her mouth to protest, but he cut her off with a cool remark. "You're an important sponsor, so stay alive." Fear gripped her as she realized just how frightening he could be, even with nothing but his words. The young man ordered her to leave while his mood remained pleasant. Stung by offense, Neil issued a curt order for the rest of the escort to withdraw to the police barracks. Hidden in the shadows, the spy dispatched by Kay watched every move unfold. Inwardly, Kai noted that they seemed to have arrived just in time for the festivities. Casting his gaze downward, he thought, now to see how well the beast folk's training has paid off. Meanwhile, the bandits, disguised as beast folk, quietly prepared for their attack. The eldest of the bandits gave permission to loot anything that caught their eye. Sometime later, one of them drifted closer to the house, choosing this place as the starting point for his search. Suddenly, a boy appeared in the way, causing the axe to swing in his direction, but Shiro calmly reached out his hand. Fen's tail wagged with delight upon seeing Shiro's success. With a spark of excitement, the boy declared that he had followed Kaizan's instructions exactly. A few days back, following the beast folk gathering, Namiya made a vow during training. To anyone seeking greater strength, he would lend his support, promising to reveal the path to becoming a warrior in just a matter of days. Norn explained that within the training circle, time would slow down to 500 times its normal pace. Fafnir listened intently, clearly intrigued by the possibilities this presented. Gathering her group, she announced with a bright grin that anyone eager to slice through enemies should call on her as their instructor. Namiya observed the entire process closely. The regimen began with a grueling 500-kilometer run, followed by 500 push-ups and the same number of bends. The challenge pushed every limit, serving as a true test of endurance. The protagonist guided them in the art of resistance, insisting that the number of bandits did not matter in the slightest. In truth, the number of beastmen had grown. He demonstrated the technique, explaining how powerful it could become in skilled hands. Victory is within reach. All it takes is a display of strength, one that will make both the criminals and the entire city take notice. At that moment, the mayor and the nobleman lounged in comfort. Getty gave a low chuckle upon noticing that the mayor had once again chosen a beauty for the night. Before him stood a girl with beast-like features. His tone turned demanding as he laid out his expectations. Calmly, she replied that he had insulted not only the pauper fruits, but the entire beastkin race. A sudden blow resounded, prompting Shiro and Fen to dash off in search of the bandits. Shiro announced that many enemies had already been defeated. Fen nodded in agreement, certain that victory was within reach. Together, they pressed on with renewed determination. The bandits were captured after a fierce struggle, their hands bound securely. Shiro threw himself into the fight with all his might, his heart swelling with pride at the thought that they would save the city themselves. According to Astaroth, the bandits turned out to be much weaker than they had expected. The group gathered on the rooftop, watching the scene unfold from above. With a note of surprise in her voice, the princess remarked how swiftly the beast folk had completed their task. The events unfolded at lightning speed. A fleeting thought crossed her mind that the plan was utter nonsense, yet perhaps that was exactly its hidden strength. Despite the temporary ease, the protagonist quietly warned that it was far too soon to let their guard down. She called out, asking what he meant. By that time, Kai had already leapt downward, shouting for her to see for herself. Residents poured out from nearby houses, drawn by the unexpected noise that shattered the night's calm. Surprise flickered across their faces, as they wondered if the beastmen had clashed with the Coin Guild. At that moment, both sides confronted each other. The coin leader accused the beast folk of colluding with bandits, and introduced himself as the Sharp Blade, Cider. He declared that punishment awaited them. Shiro exclaimed in surprise, recognizing the trap set before him, then turned and asked if these bandits were their companions. In truth, these were bandits disguised in plain clothes. The hero revealed a heap of captured assailants, their hands bound. His gaze then shifted toward the coin makers, steady and unyielding. Kai turned to one of the bandits and demanded to know if the Coin Guild had truly ordered the attack on the city. With a quivering voice, the bandit confessed that the guild had indeed given the command and instructed them to disguise themselves as beastmen. One of the townsfolk wondered about the purpose behind the bandits disguising themselves as beastmen, especially if it wasn't part of the coin's scheme. The protagonist explained that it was the beastkin who had subdued the bandits. Should the truth come to light, those responsible would be held accountable. In this case, the blame would fall squarely on the Coin Guild. With a sudden flash, Cider drew his sword and challenged Kai, his voice laced with accusation of treason. Meanwhile, the other figure from the coin conjured a tangled web of magical thorns and readied his weapon. Sticky webs trapped Kai's hands, Yet the hero replied with calm composure. The name he carried was Kai Heinemann. With a sudden, desperate motion, his arms tore through the air. The web shattered into pieces as the moneyer collapsed, overwhelmed by the sheer force. Cider shouted in anger, his voice cutting through the air as he demanded to know what was going on. Fear gripped the other guild members, anxiety flashing across their faces. With a single, swift blow, Kai incapacitated both Cider and Kaber. Then he quietly added that his help extended only to those truly in need. Anyone aspiring to become a hero can lend a hand with this. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Johnson inquired if this was truly Kai. The hunter confirmed it, the son of the legendary huntress Maria Heinemann. Once the weakest among them, Kai now raced forward, his mind recalling the simple rule: whoever lost their armband would lose the game. While hurrying to the princess, the hunter recalled that Kai now served Rosemary. Johnson wondered about his connection to the chaos spreading through the city. The hunter mentioned witnessing Maria's remarkable skill, yet it seemed almost unbelievable that the boy had managed to overcome the parasites. Johnson pointed out that Miss Rose possessed all the information straight from the source. No doubt remained. Kai was definitely here. Only recently, the Hunters Guild received a letter straight from the princess herself. In it, she revealed the plot orchestrated by Count Hetty and the mayor concerning the coins and their scheme against the beastfolk paupers, along with their connections to the aristocracy. The involvement of the Coin Heroes Guild in such deceit casts a serious shadow over the reputation of the entire hunting community. First, it is necessary to detain the masterminds behind the conspiracy. Only then can the true events unfolding in the city be revealed. Johnson, the head of the investigation, and Orga, an A-rank hunter from the Central Guild, engaged in conversation. Arriving at the mayor's estate, the group caught sight of several people from the Coin. Orga could hardly believe what he saw. Standing before the mayor was a young beastkin girl, brought there by the very members of that notorious faction. The order rang out to seize the count and the mayor, while he surged onward, determined to hunt down the leaders of the conspiracy. Orga raised his voice, calling out to the mayor and insisting they needed to have an important discussion. In the very next moment, the mayor himself crashed headfirst into the wall, quite literally. Orga stood frozen in disbelief, unable to grasp what had just transpired. Motionless on the floor lay both the mayor and the count. The girl who had fought them turned and asked if he belonged to the guild Miss Rose had mentioned. He nodded in response. A relieved sigh escaped her lips. It was time to return to her companions. She turned to Orga and asked him to look after the two. With a subtle gesture, she pointed to those lying on the ground before vanishing from sight. Orga gave a silent nod of agreement and watched her disappear. A gentle smile played on the girl's lips. If Orga hadn't appeared, she was just about to call in Kaya's subordinates. Meanwhile, Johnson wondered aloud what was happening. Another hunter replied that bandits had truly attacked the city, but most of them were seized by the beastfolk. The realization struck Johnson with astonishment. Miss Rose had told the truth. The beastkin's strength seemed almost unnatural, their rapid mobilization nothing short of astonishing. According to the townspeople, the Coin Guild truly was involved in the conspiracy. The hunter barely managed to finish his sentence when something suddenly appeared. Johnson shouted in alarm, suspecting a monster and demanding to know what was happening. High above, on the rooftop, the princess watched with Fafnir, Anna, and Asterhoff. She muttered under her breath, lamenting how he insisted on doing everything his own way once again. Fafnir mentioned that someone was approaching. Asterhoff simply replied that it was fine. Fafnir, the princess, and Anna turned around, uncertainty flickering in their eyes as they tried to make sense of the figure before them. Could it truly be him? With a polite apology, Johnson explained their arrival was at the princess's request, sent from the Central Guild. He urged everyone to pay him no mind, and suggested directing all questions to Miss Rose instead. Anna struggled to grasp his meaning, yet the words hit like a thunderclap. Kai had single-handedly destroyed one of the four most powerful guilds. And now, since Moneta was so eager to become a hero, the task of defending the city from a real monster attack now rests on their shoulders. The knights of the Coin Guild stood baffled, unable to grasp what Kai meant. Suddenly something terrifying began to crawl out from beneath the earth. A sudden shout rang out, breaking the silence. From the depths, a horde of monsters emerged, their numbers overwhelming. Sinister growls filled the air, as if they belonged to a world not meant for mortal eyes. Terror washed over the faces of the Coin members. Could these truly be the Touty monsters standing before them? The chilling possibility seemed all too real. Doubt crept in about whether even heroes, 4 powerful guilds, and the kingdom of Amelia's army could truly overcome them. Cider shouted that there was no way they could handle it on their own. With calm composure, Takai spoke. Defeating monsters falls to heroes like you. Now is the time to prove your courage. Yet an unseen force held the heroes in place. Progress eluded them, as if an invisible barrier blocked their path. Kai explained that one of his subordinates had conjured a magical barrier, enveloping the entire city in its protective shell. Monsters are unable to break through, which means there is an opportunity to confront them here without putting any civilians in danger. One of the coin minters suddenly tried to distance himself from the blame, insisting it wasn't his fault. He pointed instead to Count Getty, the mayor, and Cider. Cider shouted back, blaming everything on Cobbler's scheme. Cobbler, unimpressed, ordered him to be quiet. Fueled by rage, Cobbler drew his sword and charged at the monster, shouting his determination to handle the beast on his own. Suddenly, an urgent bell tolled from the tower. Shouts echoed down. A demonic assault had already breached the city walls. Orders swiftly swept through, demanding all residents to remain indoors. Johnson and the others stood frozen, their eyes fixed on the unfolding events. The purpose behind the heroes releasing the seal on the legendary beast remained a mystery to him. Perhaps it truly was Kai behind it all. Apparently, Kai Heinemann had deliberately drawn the battle away from the city limits in order to spare civilian lives. The princess spoke with a troubled voice, warning that if this truly was Touty, not even the might of heroes could save them. Disaster would be inevitable. Johnson received orders to protect the residents at any cost. Accepting the command, he joined forces with Orga. Turning to Anna, the suggestion was made to urgently contact Arnold and summon the royal army from Barca. Yet before she could act, a calm voice interrupted, assuring that such measures were unnecessary. Fafnir greeted Gurm Cole with evident delight, praising him for a job well done. Orga, curious, inquired about his identity. Gurm Cole introduced himself and announced that he had brought important guests, Count Getty and the mayor, whom he had just set down in the heart of the city. The princess suddenly caught sight of Orga. Hesitation flickered in his eyes as he lowered his gaze, shame written across his face. Johnson, noticing the tension, quietly asked if everything was all right. Johnson leaned in, asking if he had regained consciousness. Gurma Mikol couldn't resist making a joke, claiming the hunter fainted the moment he laid eyes on him. Astaroth intervened, assuring everyone there was no need for concern. The princess agreed with his calm assessment and instructed him to take cover as well. Astaroth took offense, yet the master calmly explained that Lady Rose could simply observe from her spot. Those who once thirsted for glory and gold now stood face to face with true terror. Looming before them was a winged beast, its head that of a snarling monkey crowned with twisted horns. Gritting his teeth, Zyder summoned his courage and shouted to the coin, urging everyone that now was the moment to prove their bravery. Though the hour grew late, understanding finally dawned on him. In the midst of battling the monster, he inspired the others, reminding them they could not falter. Someone's voice rang out, vibrant with determination. The coin is our path forward. Live on, never give in. Touty revealed his true form. Cater froze in place, utterly unprepared for what unfolded before him. Live snakes dangled from his beard. One of them lunged at Zyder, but Shiro suddenly appeared and struck it with a swift kick mid-leap. Shock washed over Cedar. Shiro stepped up beside him, not out of a desire to help Coin, but simply unwilling to let evil claim victory. The protagonist reminded everyone that these people once intended to sell beastfolk like them into slavery. Was Shiro truly certain about trusting them? Without hesitation, he replied that if they let them die, they would become no different from those they opposed. Above all else, the city's defense takes priority now. Fen announced that Shiro had made his final decision. Kai agreed and formally transferred the right to fight to the Hunters Guild. Turning to Shiro, Kai added that from now on, he would be watching the battle unfold from above. The time had come for them to save their city on their own, without relying on false heroes, he declared. The call to begin the second round rang out as someone shouted, and in unison, the Beastmen and Moneta surged forward, launching a fresh assault against the monster. From atop the roof, Johnson, the princess, Anna, Astaroth, and Fafnir kept careful watch over them. Disbelief flickered in the princess's eyes as she watched the beastfolk actually clash with Touty. The girl brought before the mayor introduced herself as Sarupa. Defiance sparked in her voice as she declared this was a struggle for survival. Only 4 would earn their places on the main stage. For now, Group D, with its 30 fighters, was taking the spotlight. Sarupa announced the end of the monster threat. Every ounce of strength shifted toward the target. A fierce assault erupted. At that moment, Kai caught sight of a man lurking among the nearby bushes. A radiant sphere materialized directly above the monster's head, casting a dazzling burst of light. Touty let out a cry of astonishment, demanding to know what strange sorcery had just unfolded. "Bingo! Enhancement!" Mac replied. The monster surged with even greater power, its strength radiating outward. One of the beast folk noticed that the monster's tail had regenerated. Sarupa, taken aback, quickly ordered everyone to stay alert. The serpent's tail lashed out with sudden force, scattering everyone in different directions. Spotting the danger, Shiro shouted a warning to Sarupa, then launched himself forward and attacked the tail. The strike failed to make an impact. Everyone from the coin emerged unharmed. Emperor Xignogastria's sword, along with the summoner ends, had been selected to carry out this scheme, which explained why the Imperial Mage wandered through these territories. Shiro couldn't fathom why his attack had failed to land any effect. In that very instant, Kai appeared out of nowhere, swift as a sudden flash of lightning. Searu found herself suddenly lifted onto Keio's shoulder and carried to safety. With a bright smile, Sarupa expressed her heartfelt gratitude to Keio for rescuing them. Kai turned to Namiya and ordered her to bring everyone inside the protective magic barrier. Seated atop Touty's head, the mage noticed there was still one last chance. Yet, an explosion obliterated the creature, leaving behind nothing but a dark, viscous puddle. "In this city, I remain a stranger. I never should have gotten involved in this massacre," Kai murmured. Mastery of the blade, second form. A sight unfolded before everyone's eyes. Kai slid his sword back into its sheath. The mage stood there, baffled by what had just occurred. Touty appeared frozen in place, as if gripped by an unseen force. Kay calmly announced that Touty was already dead. Shock flashed across the mage's face as the monstrous creature suddenly weakened and collapsed to the ground. Immersed in the oily darkness, the sorcerer wrestled with confusion, unable to fathom how the protagonist had obliterated Tout with a single strike. Kai replied with a cold edge, refusing to offer any sympathy, for he found the boy far too foolish to deserve pity. The mage, slumped in the puddle, quietly admitted he was prepared to reveal everything he knew. The hero's sharp eyes caught sight of the sphere clutched in Kai's hand, hidden behind his back. He instructed Kai to use it immediately, should their enemy shift forms once again. The mage suddenly sprang to his feet, a wild grin spreading across his face as he declared that, as a reward, he would claim the protagonist's life right then and there. Drawing forth the sphere, he pressed it to his chest and activated it, issuing a summons to the creature known as Jirma. Dark tendrils crept out from the sphere, stretching in every direction. A demonic mask formed across the mage's face, and his teeth sharpened to points, predator-like and menacing. His eyes turned a solid white, and his lips curled into a satisfied grin. The thrill of newfound power coursed through him. Whether the protagonist could bring this force to a halt remained uncertain. Kai remained motionless, puzzled by the enemy's relentless advance. Meanwhile, the mage commanded the beast to strike, aware that there was little time left. Jirma commanded his right hand to erupt, sending bursts of dark magic hurtling toward Kai, all while the mage shouted that the hero must die right then and there. Even curses and the words of spirits were nothing more than forms of magic. Weak magic posed no real danger. With unruffled composure, Kai calmly inquired if that was the extent of the enemy's abilities. The mage faltered, overwhelmed by confusion. Genuine power should have taken effect, but once again, his efforts failed to yield any results. Enraged, the mage lunged at Kai and shouted, demanding to know why his attacks had no effect. Kai, remaining calm, replied that the mage's power was worthless. In that very moment, the air shattered with bursts of light and sound. A few quick thinkers took advantage of the chaos, slipping behind the cover of nearby trees. Kai turned to his assistant, Wells, who had just arrived, and reproached him with a warning that punishment would follow for acting without permission. Wells quietly agreed with the master, offering no resistance. Kai ordered the mage to be forced to confess everything. After that, do whatever you want with him. Show him the true meaning of hell, the main character instructed. The assistant simply nodded in acknowledgement. With warmth in her eyes, the princess looked at Kai and expressed her happiness at having him serve as her protector. Kai reminded her that this was only a temporary arrangement. Rosemary nodded, fully aware of that fact. At the same time, she quietly promised that as long as he stayed by her side, she would remain beside him as well. Stretching out to rest, the protagonist mused that Rosemary was not only reckless, but also had a tendency to say rather peculiar things. Given the situation with Rena, Uncertainty clouded his feelings for the princess. Yet Rena held a special place in his heart, just as Rosemary did. Perhaps these two girls held far greater importance to him than he was willing to admit. Meanwhile, within the halls of Aramgard Castle, nestled in the heart of the kingdom of Amelia's capital, an event quietly unfolded. A soft sound of footsteps broke the silence, as a young man in a dark cloak, his long fair hair catching the light, strode confidently toward the carriage. A girl with flowing black hair adorned with a single flower hurried over to him, her face alight with joy. This was Rena Grott, Kai's childhood friend. She brought news that Rosemary had set off for bars with Kai. Kitch Steinberg, a master of magic and childhood friend to Kai, found himself reeling from the unexpected news. Rena quietly revealed that she had learned everything through a letter from Rosemary. Kitch took the letter in his hands, recognizing Mrs. Rose's handwriting before reading it aloud. The message confirmed that Kai was indeed accompanying her. Concern for their safety welled up in Rena, prompting her to firmly resolve to set out for bars herself. The young woman hurried to order a carriage, yet Kitch reached out in an attempt to hold her back. To him, this journey seemed far too perilous, even for someone as resourceful as her. Kitch asked if she truly understood the situation she was putting herself in. If they showed up in Bars right now, certain that a stern scolding from their teacher awaited them, he hesitated. Meanwhile, the girl pressed on, undeterred and full of resolve. Meanwhile, in a distant land, the Dark Lord revealed that his hold on this world was fading. Clearly, someone in Papua possessed the power to bring about his destruction. The young man asked in astonishment whether someone truly capable of killing a person like him had appeared in Papua. The Lord nodded, affirming that it was indeed possible. The target could be finished off later. In the meantime, another man appeared, wearing a pirate bandana, and declared that everyone needed to be killed. The imperious lord stood before his crew, assigning tasks to each member by name. Vinegar was charged with uncovering the identity of those who destroyed Germa. Salt received the order to accelerate the activation of the ruins. Meanwhile, Sugar and Pepper were dispatched with a single mission: destroy Popper. Failure simply could not be allowed. A subordinate reported maintaining watch until the very end, yet number 33 never returned. The situation hardly called for close supervision, yet he was eager to lend Neil a hand. Still, more lives had been lost. Counted among the closest allies of the Dark King Ashmedia, Neil knew she had to remain resolute until the very end. In silent reflection, she begged him to forgive her. Rising to her feet, she resolutely instructed everyone to continue searching for a suitable sacrifice to activate the ruins. Only a rare and exceptional soul would suffice. The girl pleaded for the king to watch over her from the afterlife. Determined to fulfill her mission, she vowed to follow him, delving even deeper into the darkness. The divine beings from the Palace of Babylon completed their inspection of the ruins. First, the demon would cross into that world alone, and only after that would the gate be opened for Lady Tiamat. Atop the throne sat a girl dressed in lavish fur-lined garments, her impatience palpable as she pressed her subordinates for the swiftest activation. Lord Chio of the faction declared with finality that anyone daring to stand against them would be utterly erased from existence. Beside the carriage, Kai lingered, while Princess Rosemary sat silently within. His gaze carried far beyond, fixed on the horizon where the unknown world awaited. He announced that permission to return to the capital would be ready in about 2 weeks. Until then, staying in Barca was unavoidable. After delivering this news, he departed quickly. Apparently, unfinished business awaited him, all tied to the aftermath of what had happened in Totetsu. A 2-week delay presented itself, not ideal, yet strangely convenient. Business often called him to the city of Kors, where the Hunters Guild in Barca stood as a crucial outpost along the road to the Silk Forest, offering an ideal spot for tracking prey. Hunters from every corner of the world are drawn to Kors. The constant flow of tasks ensures there is never a dull moment, making the guild, which matches jobs with skilled hands, an indispensable part of life here. For Kai, who dreams of journeying across the world without constraints, securing a hunter's license is an essential step. With it, he can earn money swiftly and set out on his adventures. The room buzzed with the presence of hunters. Some nursed mugs of beer, others plunged into animated discussions, while a few stood quietly, studying the information pinned to the board. Hunters are classified into 6 ranks, ranging from the novice E to the superhuman S. Advancement in rank comes through successfully completing quests and assignments. Additional tests must be passed to advance beyond rank C. Yet, as soon as the son of Marius Heinemann attains an S rank, he finds himself under constant surveillance. This level of attention could be seen as excessive oversight. Once registered, he would be able to accept assignments matching his rank directly from the guild's task board. Kai approached the counter and pressed the bell. Curiosity led him to inquire about registering as a hunter. A young woman wearing an elegant hat approached and, with a warm smile, assured him of her assistance. The registration fee amounted to 10,000 durs. The main character responded with a nod, signaling his clear understanding. A memory surfaced for Kai, recalling that the exact amount he needed was tucked away somewhere deep inside his box of belongings. Curiosity flickered across the girl's face as she asked if he really owned a box filled with various belongings. Awkwardness settled over Kai, who lacked such skills and suspected the girl had mistaken him for someone else. He had entirely forgotten how rare this talent truly was. At last, he handed over the money. The girl apologized for the misunderstanding and acknowledged the receipt of 10,000 durs. Acting so carelessly could only bring trouble. Drawing too much attention risked inviting problems he didn't need. The young woman gestured toward the spherical device, politely requesting permission to examine Kai's gift and status. According to her, a simple touch on any object before him would reveal the necessary details. Kai considered that he maintained an entirely average status, precisely 100%. Her words rang out so clearly that everyone nearby turned to look at him, their attention instantly captured. The girl apologized for announcing the results so loudly. Kai assured her that it was all right. Her surprise was understandable. In the next moment, one of the hunters shouted for everyone's attention, pointing out the boy he called the greatest failure among them. The girl urged the hunter from the league to stop, warning that she would inform the branch manager if he continued. He simply waved her off, insisting that Mia took things too seriously and that a mere merchant was hardly worth defending. Embarrassment washed over Mia after she accidentally let something private slip. Meanwhile, the protagonist seemed unfazed, believing it was easier when others saw him as weak. It kept complications at bay. With calm reassurance, he comforted Mia, quietly admitting that his greatest opponent had always been himself. In his imagination, a fierce battle unfolded against his own double. Leaping and striking with astonishing agility, he unleashed a flurry of dazzling moves, yet victory remained out of reach. Clearly, sheer effort would not be enough. Perhaps the moment had come to embrace a new strategy. Kai expressed his thanks to Mia for inadvertently spreading the word. Mia wondered if he enjoyed being the target of jokes, but Kai simply and politely asked her to continue with the registration. Casting a glance at her status board, the girl noted that her strength measured only 12. Apologizing once more for the volume, she confirmed that her stats matched exactly what Kai had requested. Thankfully, his ring continued to emit its convincing, deceptive effect. Apologizing for forgetting to remove the ability-enhancing ring, he slipped it off and suggested repeating the test to verify the results. Relief washed over Kai as he stepped out of the administration building. All that effort just for a simple registration. Mia gently reminded him that this was only the first step. The final registration would demand several more visits. She handed him a temporary card, and before departing, whispered a final warning. It would be safer to keep the ring out of sight around others. Making his way through the city streets, Kai began the long journey home with resignation. Strangers suddenly surrounded him. At that moment, the true meaning behind the administrator's warning became clear. Meanwhile, Ilsa pushed someone out of the office, remarking that some things were best witnessed in person. Down the stairs she hurried, quietly assuring herself that this task would surely earn them a generous payment. Ilsa caught sight of a young man speaking with Mia near the counter. Whispers filled the air as hunters quietly discussed the boy, claiming he was the weakest in the world and destined for nothing. Murmurs of doubt surrounded him from every side. Two hunters discussed a ring rumored to enhance abilities. One inquired about the nature of the ring, while the other replied that if the stories held any truth, such an artifact would rival a national treasure in value. Among them, one set his sights on obtaining the ring, hoping to curry favor with the boss. Ilsa began trailing the group, her eyes fixed on their every move. As she followed, she noticed 4 of them heading toward Kai. In that moment, the realization dawned as to why Jones had ordered them to watch over this boy. The true purpose was to protect him. One of the hunters shouted at Kai, calling him the greatest failure of them all. Demanding the ring next, the brazen act played out in broad daylight, right within the Hearse Guild itself. Hageness realized that blind trust only weighed her down, adding unnecessary burden to her already heavy heart. Anxiety flickered in Mia's eyes as she closely observed the unfolding scene. A faint smile played on Ilsa's lips. She realized there was no turning back from her decision to protect the boy. The crowd closed in on Kai, prompting Ilsa to surge forward with her blade at the ready. As a seasoned B-class hunter and agent, she battled a deep-seated fear of losing him. Kai moved first, his actions a blur as he subdued all the hunters in mere moments. Surprise flickered in Ilsa's eyes. With a single swift motion, he dispatched them all, and the entire hall fell silent, recognizing this as an entirely new level of mastery. This was no joke. In that instant, Johnson rushed over and asked if she had witnessed everything. Ilsa wished to avoid provoking his anger, but Johnson explained that this was exactly what the assignment was for. A few days later, inside one of Barca's luxurious residences, a bearded man demanded to know why his subordinates were fleeing like cowards. The defeated ones tried to explain themselves, claiming they had attacked together, but the boys' circle was simply too strong. They couldn't withstand it. A servant wiped away the blood and unfolded a sheet of paper. He began to read in a clear, steady voice. A boy named Kai Heinemann, possessor of the weakest gift known in the world, involved in the incident at Habersa. Mishiro immediately recognized the one that Manada had failed to defeat. A fellow subordinate leaned in and whispered that overcoming this boy was beyond their abilities. The third chimed in, saying that if things kept going this way, soon even those despised boars would seem inferior by comparison. Wouldn't you agree, boys? The leader inquired about any existing plans. The reply came quickly. Kai frequently meets with a girl from the guild, and their closeness is unmistakable. A spark of satisfaction flickered in Mishiro's eyes, recognizing this as Kai's potential weakness. A shout pierced the air, resolute and commanding. Their leader insisted that breaking this loser was crucial to glorifying the name of their card. The group rallied behind him without hesitation. Meanwhile, in Barca, the annual carnival began. Filling the city with vibrant festivities, Fafnir darted through the streets in high spirits, calling for her master and Mia to follow along. Kai warned her to be careful, prompting a cheerful agreement, while Mia simply smiled, charmed by Fafnir's boundless energy and sweetness. Mia offered to wipe her mouth, and in return received a grateful smile and a shared portion of food. Warmth and genuine kindness shone between them, which touched Mia deeply. Astaroth cast a glance at Fafnir, puzzled by how she could even think of eating in such a crowded place. In the back of his mind, Kai realized just how much Fafnir had come to care for their little group. Kai approached Astaroth to ask if she was present as well. She replied that she had only come to see if anything interesting was happening. As they conversed, both became aware of someone watching them. Recognition flickered in Astaroth's eyes as the pursuers appeared. For days, these same figures had their sights set on the master. Kai assigned Shirayuk a new task: track them down and uncover their intentions. The girl in white melted into the crowd, leaving the others to continue their stroll. Fafnir sampled the treats with the enthusiasm of a younger sister, savoring each bite. Kai remembered the moment she spotted the carnival poster and immediately started insisting she had to go. Mia stepped in, offering to accompany everyone, which turned out to be a tremendous help. Kai secretly wished Mia would spend more time playing with Faf. However, the girl's thoughts drifted to the church on the outskirts of town. From the shadows, a voice emerged, addressing her calmly. "Hello, Mia Campanella." Fear flickered in her eyes as his name crossed her mind. She began to explain, her words revealing that whenever she spoke with Kai, he always seemed younger to her. Official records from the guild list his age as only 15. In truth, his years number 100,000. For this reason, she feels free to simply call him Kai. Mia remembered her house lay in the opposite direction, so she bid farewell and waved goodbye, her cheeks flushed pink. Astaroth let out a sigh, hidden by the glow of the setting sun. Poor girl. Kai remained oblivious to it all. Stan couldn't grasp what Asta meant. Meanwhile, Mia wandered down the path, quietly humming a tune. From afar, two figures kept a watchful eye on her. All the friends and helpers gathered around a single table, quietly sipping their tea. Shirai watched them in silence, taking in the scene. She replied that most likely, everything would unfold, just as described. The main character fell into deep thought, contemplating her words. Fear gripped Rosemary and Anna, for never before had they witnessed Kai in such a state. Rosemary wondered aloud if these were the same hunters who had been trailing Kai in recent days. Kai let out a breath and admitted they were. The same group he had chased off every time they attacked. Taking a sip of her tea, Astaroth calmly remarked that they were certainly persistent. Kai explained his decision not to kill them, hoping to avoid drawing attention. Still, part of him wondered if he should have acted differently. Anna fell into thoughtful silence. Sarayuk revealed that these very people had recently kidnapped Mia Capanella. Draped in her hands was the carnival headband with cat ears that Mia had picked out. When Kai asked if she had simply been watching, it was clear that Sarayuk was not one to stand by without getting involved. Curious, he asked what she had done next. In response, the girl knelt gracefully before him. A shadow of sadness crossed Sharia's face, as she quietly insisted it wasn't necessary. Without hesitation, she announced her intent to go and rescue them at once. Kai expressed his gratitude to everyone for their efforts, yet resolved to handle the matter on his own. Memories of the Four Saints Guild's crimes returned to him, the very group meant to protect, not betray. Rosemary suggested dispatching the royal army to settle the matter. Kai, however, refused. He insisted the blame rested solely on his shoulders and vowed to put things right himself. A gentle smile played on Nemezia's lips, as if she had anticipated the master's exact response. Still, the task would require Faf's assistance. Meanwhile, the princess noticed their tea had run out, leaving only cookies behind. With a graceful bow to Kai, she declared that bandits were enemies of all women, and they would never forgive such an offense. Nemazia rose gracefully, expressing her gratitude for the kind words. With the script already underway, a maid entered the room and handed a ledger to Kai. Meanwhile, Mia wandered along the path, quietly humming a tune. Thoughts of Kai had filled her mind all day. Regret washed over her for causing him so much trouble. In that moment, a realization dawned. She truly enjoyed seeing him every day. Settling onto the bench beneath the lamplight, she lifted her gaze toward the star-filled sky and quietly wondered if she might never see Kai again. At that moment, two strangers rushed over, seized her by the arms and covered her mouth. The criminals bound her tightly, slung her over a shoulder and carried her away. From her vantage point, Shariuk witnessed the entire scene unfold, unable to intervene in time. As one of them stepped closer, she recognized him as Mr. Magister. Surrounding her, the entire gang stood watchful and silent. Mia felt unsure of their intentions. Not long ago, she had just met him. Now, she served as bait to draw him out. News of her supposed engagement to Kai left her stunned, bewildered by how those scoundrels could fabricate such a lie. The memory of registration surfaced in Mia's mind, when she had joked about getting a ring to elevate her status. Could that be the reason behind it all? Laughter erupted from the bandits, their amusement proof that their words had struck a nerve. The stage was now set for torture to begin. Mia struggled to grasp what intentions they had for her. One of them reached out a paw toward her, telling her to savor her final moments. Her desperate pleas fell on deaf ears as cruel laughter echoed around her. Hands tore at her clothing while the crowd watched eagerly, hungry for a spectacle. Mishiro shouted about wanting to see Kai's face the moment he discovered his beloved had been left scarred. Silently, Mia called out to Kai in her thoughts. Their actions drove her to tears and screams, each moment leaving her more shaken. Guilt weighed heavily on her conscience, convincing her that she was the reason they had noticed her at all. The blow knocked her out cold. In her mind, silent pleas begged Kai to stay away. Tears streamed down her face. Suddenly he appeared, gripping the attacker's hand with such force that bones creaked under the pressure. The bandit turned around, wide-eyed and stunned. Mia sprawled across the floor, her mind circling around a single thought. The worst part was that he was here. Yet deep inside, a longing stirred, a secret wish to see him. Meanwhile, rage surged through Kai, and the temple's roof shattered under the force of his fury. With a swift motion, he tore the thug's arm clean off. The crowd froze in stunned silence. No one had noticed his arrival. Michiro immediately ordered his men to encircle him. Kai gently draped a white cloak over Mia, enclosing her in a cocoon of safety. Now she could finally rest. This cloak repels every physical and magical attack. Slide a hand across her cheek, and you've only yourself to blame. Kai announced he had plenty of time for a fight. The bandits had already drawn their swords. All at once, they surged toward him from every direction. Spread the word. Mia Capanella is with us. Head toward the abandoned church in the southeastern part of Barca. The demand was clear. Exchange the hostage for the power ring. If not, her life would hang in the balance. Sword drawn and aimed at Mishiro's back, Kai demanded to know if the true boss, Mahig, was standing before him. Without lowering his blade, he pressed further, questioning whether Mishiro genuinely believed escape without harm was possible. Kai stood holding the girl wrapped in a cloak. A laugh escaped him as the situation shifted. Mishiro flashed his ring and boasted about his power of teleportation. Eyeing Kaya's ring as well, he pressed a knife to the girl's face and demanded she hand it over. Beyond the door stood Astaroth and Nemezia, while Kay quietly slipped off the ring. After warning that Mishiro would come to regret it, the terms of the agreement were set on the table, awaiting a final decision. Without warning, they burst into the hall. Astaroth announced the retreat, and Kai agreed without argument. Mishiro stood stunned, utterly caught off guard by this turn of events. A subtle gesture from Kai sent the signal, and Nemesia faded seamlessly into the air, vanishing as if she had never been there at all. Suddenly she appeared beside Mishiro and whisked the girl away before he even had a chance to react. With a sharp cry about a hidden trap, Kai tossed him the ring. "Take it. Someone who seizes hostages hardly has the right to speak about treachery." Mishiro stared in disbelief as the assistant confirmed that it was indeed the same ring. The ring that transformed the once insignificant Kai into a formidable force. Mishiro declared with confidence that he now stood as the strongest in the entire kingdom. Insulting everyone who relied on special gifts, he dismissed them without regret. Even Cider seemed more deserving in his eyes. He branded Kai an audacious pup, declaring him useless and casting him aside. With a single command, the order was given to torment Kai without mercy. The crowd quickly closed in around the hero. Kai unleashed the first form, Deathline. In an instant, everyone around him perished. Mishiro stood alone, never even glimpsing the strike. A wave of terror washed over him as he realized his fingers were gone. Blood poured freely from his wounded hand. Kai revealed that he had never worn a single enhancement artifact from the very beginning. Meanwhile, Mishiro pleaded for assistance. The hero raised his sword, resolute and unshaken by the challenge before him. Defeat was not an option for someone of his strength. The end had come. Light flooded the meeting place. Kai summoned Belzit, who promptly answered the call. Without hesitation, the hero commanded him to ensure those monsters endured true torment. Driven to the brink, yet spared from crossing it, the captives lingered on the edge of survival. Belzit followed the order without hesitation. Nemesia did the same, their resolve unwavering. At the Hunters Guild, Johnson gave an approving nod as everything finally fell into place. The map lay in tatters, nearly obliterated. Execution on the gallows almost certainly awaited Mayor Higa for the full list of his crimes. Kai inquired of Nemesia why she had allowed those villains to abduct Mia. "Idiot," she murmured under her breath, then quietly asked Kai to carry her back to the dormitory. Without protest, he voiced his surprise, suggesting that perhaps it would be more fitting for the guild members themselves to handle the task. Astaroth insisted that since everything had already happened, he had to accept responsibility and handle it himself. Kai nodded in agreement. Cradling Mia in his arms, he instructed Astaroth to erase any trace of the massacre. Nemesia glanced cautiously around, her eyes scanning the aftermath. Curiosity flickered in her eyes as she wondered aloud if this was the true extent of the Master's power. Astaroth calmly replied that he had barely tapped into even 1/100th of his strength. Nemesia, pondering this, remarked that with such might, the Master must have no real enemies. Astaroth affirmed this, but added that it was not the battles that kept the Master anchored to this world. He needed something even more meaningful. Kai leaned in close to check if she was conscious, his concern evident. He promised to carry her home right away, apologized for scaring her, and gently asked if she was in pain. Mia assured him that everything was fine, unsure how to express her gratitude. She listened, as Kai insisted it wasn't necessary. After all, it had all happened because of him. Hugging him even tighter, she glowed with deeper happiness than ever before. Mia quietly admitted that the dormitory was locked, but she would manage on her own. He helped her stand. As she glanced back, he suddenly pulled her close once more. For several minutes, they lingered side by side in silence. Eventually, they parted ways and exchanged a gentle wave, bidding each other farewell without a word. Ilza summoned them, mentioning that she too had something to discuss. The group exchanged glances, their surprise evident. Astaroth remarked that their fate was now intertwined with Kai's. Nemesia assured that no harm would come to those whom the Master wished to protect. Johnson admitted he hadn't managed to express his gratitude in time, but he still made a request. Kay set out to help purge the Hunters Guild of corruption. It seemed they had truly stirred up a hornet's nest. The scene sent a chill through everyone. Yet Mia was saved. Johnson's memory stirred and he recognized the young man as the son of an old friend. Though unsure of what had changed in him, he sensed that the heart beneath remained the same. She placed her trust in them with a quiet certainty, convinced that neither he nor his friends could harbor any malice. For an ordinary boy, Kai caused quite a stir. It seemed he had yet to realize the weight of his new role as a royal guard. The princess gently reminded Anna that Kai's role as a guard was only temporary, a request she herself had made. In a hushed voice, the princess added that Anna must have waited for him all night. Anna explained that she couldn't leave Race alone to wait for Kai. After all, Kai always did things his own way. Worry seemed to cling to Rose, a constant companion. A gentle smile played on the princess's lips, convinced that Anna was simply exhausted. Morning arrived, ushering in the moment to write a letter. Both girls settled into their beds, and just before drifting off to sleep, a thought crossed the princess's mind. Rose placed her complete trust in Chaya. Rose abruptly demanded to know if he truly believed the king, and she were to blame for everything. The princess attempted to soothe her, but Anna could no longer contain herself. Fierce determination blazed in her eyes. Thoughts of her people constantly occupied her mind. Summoning Anna, the princess calmly instructed her to rein in her enthusiasm. The argument soon drifted into political territory. During the debate, Kai quietly suggested that perhaps they should just leave the girl alone. Wolf mentioned a craving for cookies. The princess smiled warmly and promised to bake as many as her friend desired. A request for ordinary tea was passed on to Anna through Kai, who nodded in silent understanding. Clearly, the princess wished to offer them a chance for reconciliation. Meanwhile, Anna wandered aimlessly through the city streets. From a bridge, the faint voice of a child drifted over from near a monument, calling out for his grandmother and saying Aris was there. In this kingdom, virtue is measured by the blessing of Aris, the holy god of war. Yet the true worth of these values seemed uncertain. Above, the sky was suddenly split by the menacing roar of a dragon. The more Anna yearned to become a proud knight, the more doubts gnawed at her heart. Each step she took made her question whether these virtues truly led to justice. The beast's growl and sudden movement caught her attention. Nearby, a slave trader paraded his wares for all to see, a harsh reminder of the discrimination woven into the very fabric of the Earth Kingdom. Holding tightly to the image of a proud knight she had crafted for herself, she quietly feared the day this illusion might crumble. Once, she might have been powerless to shield Rose, choosing instead to turn away from the danger. Now, resolve and clarity filled her mind, allowing her to consider every possible action. If a child found safety in her embrace, she wondered what choice she would make next. The slave trader raised his whip, but Anna called out, demanding he keep his hands off the child, and grabbed his wrist. He protested indignantly, insisting it was only a display of the merchandise. After all, it was an animal, not a person. Shielding the child with her body, Anna glared at the man. Recognition flashed in his eyes. This was the girl from the very kingdom that had inspired such discrimination. Inside, Anna battled to keep her anger in check. The crowd parted as Kai stepped forward, his voice steady as he offered a calm apology, insisting that Anna was still unfamiliar with the ways of the world. Anna stood in stunned silence, unable to process the sudden turn of events. The slave trader muttered irritably, complaining that their presence was interfering with his business. Scandals were the last thing he wanted. Kai quickly caught on. Pulling out a pouch of coins, he suggested they get down to business. Inside the pouch were 80,000 orlas. The merchant's face lit up, though he pointed out that this amount would only serve as a down payment. The silver-furred half-beast stood as a true rarity. The full price reached 2 million orals, and the buyer had 30 days to gather the sum. Any deposit given would remain non-refundable. Anna seized Kay by the collar, her voice sharp as she demanded to know if he was buying a person with money. Trading people right under the nose of a kingdom knight took daring beyond reason. Kai, visibly flustered, explained that his priority was to protect the child, believing it to be the safest choice in their current situation. For a moment Anna remained silent, then gently let him go. A realization dawned on her. It had been a defense, albeit a hurtful one. Kai admitted that the kingdom's troubles could never be solved in an instant, but at least he paused to think before taking action. Then, for the first time, he addressed her by name. Anna, you handled things well. The unexpected use of her name caught her off guard, and she smiled in surprise. She reminded him they needed to buy what they came for quickly and head back to Rose. Back at home, the entire story unfolded before the princess. The bottom line was clear. 2,000,000 eagles would be required to ransom the child. Anna confirmed she had witnessed everything with her own eyes. The princess agreed with the plan to pay the ransom. Kai, surprised, asked if she happened to be a masochist, warning that her proposal could spark a scandal or even endanger her life. Anna, puzzled, inquired about the meaning of the word. Anger simmered within the princess. Kai explained he couldn't take money from the treasury, but needed advice on how to earn such a large amount in just 30 days. The princess suggested selling a family heirloom, the resurrection ring, assuring them it wasn't public money. Both Kai and Anna refused her idea. The princess had devised another strategy. Should she reach the finals, she would claim the prize money quietly, without causing any trouble. Later, at the sacred martial arts tournament, Kai realized he had fallen right into her trap. His name had already been registered under the number D98. Seated in the carriage on the way to the tournament, Kai pored over the rules, grumbling under his breath. The format of the duel annoyed him. Knowing a single mistake could spell defeat, the princess added that if nothing worked, she could always sell the ring. Yet once more, Kai reminded her that he had already forbidden such a thing. The tournament gathered a large crowd of participants. An aura caught Kai's attention. A muscular young man in a t-shirt stood before him, wanting to know if Kai possessed any real strength. For a moment, the young man's presence brought Namiyu to Kai's mind. Introducing himself as Zack from Group B31, Zack waited. Kai responded by revealing his own group, D98. With a confident smile, Zack promised they would meet in the finals. Meanwhile, one of the observers admitted her confusion. The host expressed his surprise, noting that even her sharp observation skills had proven useless. She shook her head and asked not to call her actions surveillance. Still, her watchful eyes never left him. The master couldn't help but chuckle and said, it seemed Kai Heinemann was now on their side. First, Kaiser Keeley's heel needed to be cut. The girl swiftly drew her knife, appearing to grasp exactly what had to be done. Delighted, she exclaimed that sometimes survival simply required having money. Sitting inside the carriage, Kai came to a realization. The tournament was his opportunity. Yet doubts lingered about spending so much time away from the capital. The princess reassured him, explaining that Arnold was still dealing with the aftermath, and that as long as Kai was absent, it was impossible for him to return. Without him as their guardian, they were forbidden from returning. This revelation took Kai by surprise. After all, his actions saved not just them, but countless others as well. Dropped off at the curb, a realization struck him with clarity. She had outmaneuvered him. Yet there was no other way to make money quickly. Best to finish this quietly, and without delay. At least his registration was complete. Now it was time to meet with Rose and the others. Suddenly a voice called out, taunting with sharp words. Hey, loser! What are you even doing here? Noticing the participant card in Kai's hand, another observer quickly reported it to the senior instructor. Another student inquired whether Kai would also be participating. Outraged, the senior instructor declared that Kai's involvement was an insult to his school and demanded that Kai leave the tournament immediately. Kai recognized them instantly. They were the very same ones. Shiga, the senior instructor from the Heinemann school, stood at the front, his students gathered close behind. These were the people who had scorned Kai once his gift became known. Kai asked if they were here to enhance the school's reputation. Yet, he had already left the Heinemann clan behind. Their techniques no longer guided his path. They had no right to dictate his choices. Shiga shouted, declaring that his very existence brought shame to their school. A student named Riku turned to the senior instructor, dismissing the contestant as a hopeless cause destined for a humiliating defeat. As Kai walked away, the other students called after him, urging him to keep an eye on their achievements that would soon prove the might of Heinemann Academy to the entire world. The senior instructor, with a dismissive tone, warned Kai not to bring disgrace to the school's name. 2 days slipped by, bringing with them the arrival of the first qualifying round of the Sacred Martial Arts Tournament. All participants are assigned to groups of 100. According to the rules, in these groups, most members turned out to be newcomers and wandering souls without names. None of the names on the list belonged to anyone famous. Kai imagined himself easily defeating each opponent, taking them down one after another without effort. Extra attention only brings unnecessary trouble. so blending in seemed wiser. Yet, familiar voices echoed from behind. Heinemann's classmates once again dismissed him as talentless. One of them remarked that if they managed to defeat the talentless opponent, the instructor would surely praise them. Meanwhile, the two girls couldn't even agree on which of them would be the one to knock out Kai. While the others argued over who would claim all the glory, Kai silently and unseen removed their blindfolds. At last, an agreement to launch a united attack had been reached. But in that same instant, they realized the so-called failure was already on his way. Their armbands clutched firmly in his grasp. The judge, her expression marked by surprise, asked if Kai had really gathered them himself. Without a word, he handed her the 3 bands. Only a single minute had passed since the battle had begun. The judge nodded in approval, signaling that this would suffice. He advanced to the next round. Only now did the 3 students realize they had already been eliminated. A crowd of spectators witnessed the scene unfold, while the tournament organizers kept a close and watchful eye on every detail. One of the lords, unable to hide his astonishment, asked who the boy was and what kind of technique he had just witnessed. Lord Aaron, the mastermind behind the tournament, and the esteemed head of Kaiyan School, had just received a report concerning the unfolding events. The young man was none other than the grandson of Elm Heinemann, renowned master of one of the kingdom's 2 most illustrious schools. Memories of Kay flickered through Aaron's mind. People often claimed he possessed the gift of mediocrity, yet that couldn't possibly be true. Elma's grandson? It truly is Kai, though he's changed so much. His skills are undeniably elite, but what brings him here? It seemed that the label of mediocrity served only as a clever disguise, ensuring no other academies would snatch him away. Now that Kai was no longer tied to the Heinemann school, Lord Aaron could freely extend an invitation to join the Kaiyan school. Possessing such remarkable skills, Kai had the potential to become a royal card. Aaron, once resigned to disappointment in the younger generation, now saw everything shift. In the finals, a true hidden champion awaited them. The students stood with their heads bowed in shame as the inspector pressed on, baffled by how such incompetence could have managed such a daring act. One student suggested that Kai had used an object to steal their armbands. The girls insisted he had definitely cheated, yet for some reason they refused to conduct an investigation. Outrage swelled among the students. One of the boys turned to the teacher, declaring that this mocked all their hard work. A demand rose to track down the cheat and give him the punishment he deserved. The wrongdoer, they insisted, should not escape justice. Yet Riku intervened, halting everyone with calm determination. He declared that in the next round he would personally challenge Kai, openly and fairly, to expose his deceit before them all. The audience will become witnesses, and with the opponent's defeat exposed, the school's honor will be restored. The students who had lost their armbands rallied behind him. Now, Heinemann School stands divided, with the primary and secondary factions locked in a struggle for prestige. In the midst of this conflict, Riku is destined to become the hero. A gentle smile appeared on the senior instructor's face as he placed a reassuring hand on Riku's shoulder, signaling their trust in him. Pride swelled within Riku as he accepted the responsibility. Rising to his feet, he declared in a loud, confident voice for all to hear to await his moment of triumph. In the tavern, the sound of a mug hitting the table echoed through the room. D-Class Hunter Ray Geister raised his voice above the crowd, loudly declaring Kai Heinemann to be the most worthless person in the world. Gook, his partner, found himself puzzled, unable to understand what Mia could have possibly seen in that Kai. Deep down, Gook believed he was a far better match for her. Lately, though, the two of them had been spending more and more time together. Fury burned within Rai, excelling Kay in every way, yet still. A commanding voice rang out, ordering him to go home and get some sleep, insisting that his rowdy behavior end immediately. Rai sprang to his feet, shouting threats to kill everyone, but his companion at the table reached out and stopped him, insisting that enough was enough. Gook quickly offered apologies to everyone, explaining that Raya was simply out of control and drunk. The mug slipped from his hand, only for him to discover it was empty. Desperation crept into his thoughts. If only a glimmer of hope remained. A stranger approached, pouring him a drink and quietly offering, "Drink this, and calm your nerves." A newcomer arrived in bars, introducing himself as Salt and asking if he could join the group. Rai noticed that this person possessed a wealth of knowledge. Salt responded. The message revealed that his destination lay within the ancient temple, hidden deep in the heart of the Vasilk forest. Rai's eyes widened with surprise at the mention of such a place. An ancient temple, long tucked away from the world. Rai grumbled under his breath about that girl. Yet, being only a D rank, he knew the temple demanded nothing less than an A-class challenger. Attempting it now would mean certain death. The stranger revealed a gleaming amulet to Rai, and whispered that with its power, Rai would ascend to the rank of an S-class hunter. Meanwhile, boredom crept over Fafnir. Loud complaints about her master ignoring her echoed through the room, and a dull sense of restlessness settled in. The princess objected, explaining that Kai was constantly tied up with the preliminary rounds. Kai offered a brief apology to the dragon. The princess added that they would have happily come to support him otherwise. Anna unveiled the chart, revealing Kai's advancement to the second round. A victory in tomorrow's final of the third stage would secure him a prize of 3 million igels. A smile spread across Kai's face, surpassing their expectations. Securing victory in the final match would be an excellent outcome. The choice stood stark. Accept the money, or throw the match on purpose and return to bars. Kai approached Fafnir, gently stroking her head, as he promised that he would play with her as soon as he returned. A gentle cough from Anna served as a subtle reminder for him to remain composed. The princess observed, noting how Anna and Kai had clearly grown closer. Without hesitation, Anna told Rose that they were not friends. The next day, the finals for Group D began. Ms. Odo apologized for the delay before explaining the rules once more. Losing consciousness or being thrown out of the arena would mean defeat. Exciting battles lay ahead. Glancing around, Kai failed to spot a worthy opponent. Even so, caution remained essential. He might accidentally take another life. Odo mentioned that members from the Sigma group had already fought in the main arena. They stood out as the clear favorites. Next up, Riku Salvatore steps onto the stage, the pride of Heineman's school and apprentice to Master Elm. All eyes watch in anticipation, curious to witness the technique he will unveil. At last, the final contestant stepped forward. His name was Kai, and the crowd instantly recognized him. Sigma inquired whether the host looked down on the powers of the other contestants. Fly nodded in agreement with her. Riku stood up for the host, insisting that he merely spoke the truth. Kai, on the other hand, never should have been there in the first place. Sigma remarked that this fool wags his tongue far more than his sword. Fly laughed, admitting there was some truth to her words. Riku burst out, demanding to know who was talking. Determined to prove himself, he prepared to act. The host's excitement grew as tension filled the air. The Group D finale was about to begin. Kei considered that if the strongest fighters took each other out, advancing to the next round would become much easier. Suddenly, a competitor charges at him with a sword, shouting a warning not to get lost in daydreams. Kai sidestepped effortlessly, a thought flickering in his mind. Perhaps he could pretend to be an accidental victor. Hardly had he begun to recover when another warrior lunged at him with a sword. The attacker, noticing Kai standing with his eyes closed, already considered the fight won. Yet in Kai's mind, it was clear. This battle would not end so easily.